awesome to be with you all today, and want to thank people from every part of the Cutco world for showing up today. And today's a really special day for me because we had an intention to really celebrate, a part of what's been a piece of the Vector culture and Cutco culture forever, which is helping leaders and people to move forward and to grow. We've all benefited and really been blessed with so many experiences over our careers and years where people have poured into us, and at times we may have had the opportunity to pour into others. And really, recently in the manager world, we've been experiencing this masterclass format that really came out of an idea session where Trent, in a conversation, was inspired that, why do we always have to wait till SLC or the next rep development conference to bring great content forward? And essentially, in a season like we've been in the past 2 years, obviously we've all had to adapt and adjust in the way that we're connecting and communicating. And I think when we look back in the history of our company, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we'll reflect on a season where we found some great new ways to connect and to communicate. And so for those of you who, whether you're aware of it or not, we've been running masterclasses for our management team since last year around SLC. There might be 30 or 40 of them in the books, and just an opportunity where people can come forward and share.
Sorry, Johnny, I muted you there briefly for a second, just as we got to mute everybody out here, but please carry on.
Yeah, no worries. So the masterclass format's been a place where people can share their gifts. They can share what they've learned, what they're learning, what they're working on. And it's been beautiful. Recently, for our managers, you'll know that there was a transition where Fred Glazier and Mike Monroe and Jeff Kunkel and others really were able to share some really relevant things technically to really support your recruiting efforts and many of your efforts as a manager. We wanted to, as we approach this summer, which is really an important summer for our company on many levels. It's a time when we're seeing massive growth and development in so many sales rep programs. We're seeing a lot of fruit there. We're seeing a lot of people preparing for the summer. We know it's an important time, and we really wanted to bring what we felt would be some content that could be helpful for leaders everywhere. And as I reflect on the past 10 years, we are celebrating 10 years where our company found it to be significant and important enough to dedicate a department to the ongoing leadership development of our people. And I found it, when I think about things, I'm not always anxious to jump into this seat for things. I really prefer to see others be in a space of sharing, presenting. But when I thought about this particular event and thinking about the fact that I've had the ability to really bear witness to this journey from its inception. In just a few moments, I'm going to invite Mike Monroe's voice in as kind of part of our intro. But I want to share a little bit of that story to help you understand where we've been. And today, I am excited that I get to honor so many great leaders that are here on this call. And also especially honor Trent, who has been working on our team to bring this work alive for the past decade plus. Mike Monroe, can you share, I don't know if we can have a mic unmute and get here, but Mike Monroe, can you share some of your early impressions and experiences that you had working with Trent? And this was pre 10 years ago. What year did that start? He looks frozen. Know if we got him.
He might be back soon. but he
All
looks
right.
super frozen.
He does. He looks very serious though. He looks very serious.
I've
very
been frozen in worse positions.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, I'll come back to that. I'll just simply say that,
Oh, he's
oh,
back.
there he is.
Am I
Hold on.
back?
You might be back. Nope, maybe not.
It's usually when my family turns the vacuum on or the TV.
How about now?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, there you are.
Pretty impressive that you can freeze when you're hardwired into the internet. So I guess the climax of it all is that Trent's coaching inspired me so much to move out in the middle of nowhere, where apparently wired internet doesn't mean anything. How about that? It's funny because I was a 22-year-old kid with all the ambition and work ethic in the world, but didn't necessarily know, as most 22-year-old versions of ourselves, exactly where that ambition and work ethic should go. And so I didn't intentionally seek Trent out. I would call it a providential relationship. The old saying is what? That when the student is ready, the teacher kind of appears. And I'm sure many of us from 25 to 75 on this call probably have had experiences like that, where the right person just shows up, right? And it wasn't, hey, I'm Trent, formal coaching relationship. You interested? Sign the contract. It was a relationship that started in sincerity, that started in curiosity.
Well,
It was
it's
cold in
very-
Boston, if
it's
that
a-
means anything. It was really cold and we
very,
froze.
very suspenseful, this part of the call. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm going to fill in some blanks for Mike while he tries to sort out some of his technical stuff. We've lost a lot of you there, Mike. There you go. He'll be back. Just simply put, Trent was living in Canada, and I had a chance to meet him when he was a district manager and a division manager. And I remember having an impression that I really liked this guy. It was a lot of fun. And I was at a breakfast with Joe Cardillo, and Joe said, hey, as you're building your sales development team, you might really want to talk to and get to know Trent Booth. And at that time, they were about to have their second child. Jake wasn't even born yet. And Trent came down and interviewed. And I remember it was 2003, him asking me a lot of questions during the interview. He says, what can you tell me about the trajectory of Vector? How do you think it's going to go? And what do you think it's going to be like here these next 10 years? So I remember saying, I have no idea. I was hoping you could help me with that. Right now, we're looking for a lot of people to help us figure that out. And if you know the story of the past 20 years, there's been a lot of growth, a lot of development, a lot of high point moments, a lot of great things. But Trent was hired into a role of essentially being the person in charge of newspaper ads. And I wouldn't say that assignment necessarily made his heart sing, but he did a great job with it. But along the way, he just started connecting with people, and the relationship with Mike and others developed through that work. And so, Mike, I think we got you back. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't know how this happens when you have wired internet. I really don't.
No, you're actually good now. And so I know they started talking, and I know that Trent kept coming to me and saying, really, I'm loving talking to this guy. And I really think, Mike, you were one of the people that really inspired Trent about the work he might love to do more than newspaper ads. And so I guess I would just ask you, Mike, when you reflect on some of those early conversations, what are some of the lessons or nuggets or things that you took from those early days? Because I really view that as kind of the origin of the leadership development journey. So I'd just love to hear that as part of our intro.
I love it. So one of the most important things I remember, and I've carried this with me over the last 15 to 20 years, was something I think that you taught him, John, and something that he gravitated towards. And that was this. He said with a close-up shot, everybody needs three things to advance in their career. They need to work hard, they need to be smart, and most of anything, they need a sponsor. And Trent said, I would like to sponsor you. And I'm like, cool. What is that? What does that mean? Well, why don't we start with a weekly or a monthly call, and let's just kind of see how it goes. And it's interesting because when you start to think about life in terms of who is my sponsor and who can I sponsor, it starts to get a lot less, I guess the expression we've heard a lot is on purpose, off self. That was the beginning.
Cool. Yeah, already something powerful to consider, as we go into the summer, as we go into this year, who's helping me and who am I helping? And I think about those early times, and I think about Trent really sharing that he loved this work of really meeting people where they were and supporting them on the journey. I have in my text no less than 30 testimonials that have come through over the past couple of days of people who are going to be joining here and there or not able to join today, of really people sharing the impact of this work. And I really want to say today, Trent, that I want to thank you. I want to thank you for stepping out of your comfort zone, and in thanking you, really encouraging everyone here who is in support of people to think about where you can step out of your comfort zone to add more value, to look for places where you can shine a light for other people or shepherd other people on their journey. Because while Trent is very special, there's really nothing special about that act that we're all capable of being a part of. Trent, I would love you to take a few minutes, and if you could, can you share some impressions with everyone from those early times with the, again, the intention of possibly shining a light for leaders of, what it's like in the beginning, what inspired you at that time, what were some of the ingredients in the soup at that time to help you get excited about doing this work or doing the work you were most excited about?
Yeah, I loved doing this as a rep. Even I loved field training. It goes all the way back to that, and I kind of liked, I liked selling. I liked selling enough to get to like where I needed to be, and then I loved that I had an opportunity then to like serve and lead people as an assistant manager, and then Joe Cardillo's pilot office, and I just had a sense that I was going to be better at helping people than I was at selling, and I have great respect, great admiration. My grandfather was a career salesman at Procter & Gamble. So I respect and appreciate what it takes to sell year in and year out. And I welcome, and I'm so grateful for so many of our CSP friends on the call here today. And yet for me, I was excited to utilize that as a vehicle to get into leadership and get into management. It's always the part that I love the most is the PC, that I could sit down with a fellow rep and help them troubleshoot. Where were they stuck and how could we move them forward? And some of you might notice a name, Katie Booth, on the call here. Katie is my daughter. She turns 21 this summer, and she's about to open up as a pilot manager with the Rocky Mountain Division out in South Denver. And Katie wants to help people. And it's interesting, that I don't think the apple falls from the old tree. And in this case, I think the best, fastest way to get great at helping people is to have practical experiences. And there's not many opportunities as a teenager / young person in their young 20s to be able to actually help out and encourage others in the position of authority, really, that I was placed in as an assistant manager in even 1993, 94 is remarkable. Still blows me away that we have really young people leading and serving young people. If you fast forward years later, I was working in 2003 and 2002 with Marty Dimitrovich. And I think I've always loved the personal growth aspect of Vector. And Marty at the time, I don't know if he was ill when he was promoted necessarily, but it wasn't long after he was promoted to president of leadership that he got sick. But he was running something called Vector University. And it was an opportunity for us as division managers or newly promoted to kind of come out of the field and just think and get strategic and be able to move forward. and it was such a remarkable time. The sessions were outstanding. It was like an intensive 2-3 day event. And then afterwards, we got 8 calls with Marty. And it was just so refreshing to be poured into like that. I mean, and I would get calls with Joe, and Joe would pour into me, or he'd come and visit me in Montreal or Ottawa, wherever I was. But to have Marty really dive in, and we weren't talking sample kit numbers, we weren't talking recruiting numbers or how many's coming to the SC2. We were just talking about me. And the difference that that made for me being able to pour into other people was really remarkable. So it was to the point where I really wanted to do that so much. Even if my job wasn't that, I was going to do my job really well, fast, and then see if I had any time left over to do more of that. So I think I'm checking some boxes here, Johnny. Is that what we're looking for there?
It's good. And we are going to jump around a little bit today. And just to give you an idea, if I think about the last 10 years, sometimes I think about it, if you love music, as what's your favorite greatest hits album? What's the album you can, what's the album, if anybody still listens to albums, what's the album you can listen to from start to finish and love every song? And so as we thought about taking a couple hours here and digging into content, it really felt like picking, like, what are some of the greatest hits? What are some of the things, love it, Philly B. What are some of the things that we could pull here? So there's going to definitely be an element today of teaching. That is going to be a piece of today. There's going to be an element of some stories being told. There's going to be an element of inviting in some voices and special guests, people who've essentially have a testimony to share about their experience in general. I noticed Wes Frank is with us, and I'm not sure how much of today Wes is going to be here, but I know that Wes is someone who has been kind of with us the whole journey of this past 10 years. And Wes, I would love it if you'd be willing to share some of the teachings or nuggets or things that you've worked in building your career with, some of the things you and Trent have worked on together, some of the things you've worked on with your people. Many of the things we've taken from you and others like you to incorporate into this work. So this is, you know, we didn't really create anything here. We really bore witness to a lot of great things happening. So Wes, I would just love, since we have you early, thanks for being here, if you could share possibly some of your own experiences.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, John. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. It's good to see everybody, and some faces I haven't seen in a while too. So it's good to see everyone. So, when I think back, so it's been 22 years for me with the company, and I think about the different roadblocks and speed bumps that I've had to navigate, as anyone does in a long career. And, there's one person who was there for most of the major inflection points in my career to help me talk through them and give me more clarity, help me get clear on all the crazy thoughts that were going through my mind during different times. And that person's Trent Booth. And, I don't think there's any way I have the career longevity I've been able to have at the level that I've been fortunate enough to be able to have it without that influence and coaching early on as a newer district manager. And then again, throughout my time as a division manager, as the stakes, as you climb in your career, the stakes, get on your decisions and your emotions continually grow bigger and bigger. And that's just been such an important key relationship for me. And I think just having a safe space to talk through decisions and assess my mentality, and hey, am I crazy for thinking this? And so figuring out where my leadership blind spots were. I mean, that's just been a priceless relationship in my career. And I always got the feeling from Trent that my conversations with him would have been exactly the same whether he was on company payroll or not. And I feel like that's what made it more special and valuable. And then that makes me think, okay, well, hey, then I think about the fact that this is a person and this is a role that was something that the company valued enough to put in place to help up and coming leaders to elevate their games. And that just makes me feel very proud of our company, and it makes me feel very grateful for the company and the people, who saw value in that, even on a long-term play, right? Because you could invest in this department, and who knows whether it's going to have long-term benefits. It might just be a feel-good thing, right? But I think in retrospect, as we look back and all the people who were impacted, and you'll probably hear from some of those people today throughout the meeting, I think it's pretty obvious that it has paid some nice dividends over the years. But I think, for those of you who watch the show Billions, like Trent has been like my Wendy Rhodes, right? And so, I was fortunate enough to do Vector University with Marty D early in my career. And I think that really just got me, on the path of leadership development and wanting to learn more, and realizing that if I spent time working on that, it wasn't fluff, like the time I spent working on that was gonna see real gains in my career and on the scoreboard as well. And so, and it was essentially free coaching, but it was better quality coaching than I was ever exposed to outside of the business. And certainly over the course of my career, I've seen lots of reps and managers get coaching outside of the business that doesn't hold a candle to the coaching that I got inside of the business. So, I think some of the key, things, just the importance of EQ. I remember, having early conversations with Trent about that, and, just being in touch with how I showed up, as a person to each event or to each decision, and trying to put myself in other people's shoes the best I could throughout any major decision. And I was looking back through my notes as I was getting ready for this meeting, and we're talking, Trent, like 2007, 2008, and some of those early key conversations that we had, and navigating some challenges. And it was it's just, it made me smile looking back on it. I certainly wasn't smiling at the time during some of those things, but it was but it's fun to look back at some of those things and see, just see the process of having somebody to bounce ideas off of, and a trusted resource. So anyway, John, I don't want to take too much time, but yeah, just overall, everything from the early conversations to the leadership development days, and being able to expose some of my top people to some of that teaching and bringing them into Philadelphia. It was just I think it's been one of the key points in my career was this department.
So many things to reflect back on, but I think as you're listening today, depending on your perspective, one of the questions that you can kind of keep next to you is, how might this apply to me as a leader in my relationship with others? And, even if you're newer to the team, if you're the newest person on here, the fact is we're not going anywhere. We're planning for an exciting future together. In many ways, it's possible that we are just at even though we've been here 70 years, there's not a vision to make it to like 75. There's a vision to make it to, 150. The goal is to keep this thing moving. And so there's going to be opportunities for people to step up and step in. And 22 years from now, our hope and prayer is that someone's sharing a memory from this summer, this year, this masterclass of when they began their journey. And I think as you listen to Wes, it's cool to just hear the kind of the life, half of his adult life impacted by people like Marty, by the Vector culture. And so if you're new, lots of great things ahead. If you've been here really reflecting on, hey, am I really grabbing everything I can from the tree here? If there's fruit hanging on the Vector tree, am I taking part of it? It's impossible to cover everything that's been taught here today. Part of the goal is to shine a light on the fact there's some great content out there on YouTube and Vector Connect and SLCs and conferences. There's a body of work out there to explore that you don't have to pay someone a lot of money to get. It's for free. And while certainly people have choices about how they grow, and I think it's cool to do a lot of different things, we've always just felt like, what if we could provide it right here in ways that people don't have to pay more? What if it's just a benefit of being associated with the company? And I just really want to honor Albert and Bruce and Jim, John Welpley, people who supported the idea of there even being a department called this. Because in that statement, it says a lot about who Cutco is, that they care that people are being poured into. And that's something I'm really proud of. Wes, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to say, Wes, from all the teachings, if you were to like dial up a track on the greatest hits thing, what is something you'd love to see Trent talk about or teach today? And I think we're going to get right into some content, but I'm going to let you, if that, Trent, you're cool with that, right? He could just hit the button, right? You're ready. Go ahead. What would you love to see shared or discussed today from your experience?
Well, I would certainly be okay with just hitting the shuffle button on many of the topics, but I think, some of the things that stand out to me, John, was I loved just every couple of years just reevaluating my top 18, my next 16 business and personal relationships. I would say next up on the playlist, if you let me have more than one. I mean, I think just making a list of all your favorite things probably evaluates and getting that from other people. That might not be something that you do today, but I think knowing what people around you's favorite things are can make gifting more special, can make just finding opportunities to make people feel good throughout the year. I mean, those are a couple key ones. And I mean, decision train, Trent's always great on speaking about that stuff. So I mean, I think just those business and personal relationships, and that question of would they know, right? Would they know that they're part of your top 8, or would they know that you're part of your next 16? So that has always stood out to me.
Well, you just requested 6 topics, so that Wes has totally dominated the song request sheet, so that's good. Well, it's cool that you can remember that many. That's good. 22 years in, it's good you still got it together here, buddy. Thank you. TB, where do you want to start today? And I would also want to just say that, as the day evolves, a lot more will be shared about you, the department. But what would you like to teach first today? What would you like to, from from Wes's selection, you have many to pick from there. Where do you want to start?
Well, thanks, Wes and John. This is just so much fun. And it feels, is it Storytellers, the one where like the audience requests in real time, the band scrabbles and like, do we know the chords even? Like, what does that start? It starts in C. It's fun to be here and kind of replay some of the hits. One of the things I'd like to share from the top here in terms of content, it actually encapsulates a lot of what Wes has just referenced here. So if I could share my screen briefly here, I'll just show you a thought that's occurred to me recently. And that is, first of all, there's what I know. And I'll do it slowly for everybody so you get it all eventually here. But there's, unfortunately, a lot of us get stuck at that. And we assume that we need more knowledge. Now, there's kind of 2 extremes I would find in this one, even in vectors. So I do find some people that like feel like they know it all. I've got it all. I've read a lot of books. I've watched a lot of videos. I got it. I'm good. And I would caution you against that one, especially when you see some of the bullets here. But what I know, I would encourage you to constantly be bumping up against good ideas, big ideas, philosophies, thoughts. The more that you can bombard your brain with some great thoughts, the better that you'll be. I would also affirm that most of you really know most of the things that you would need to do to succeed. She was Amy Lee. Now it's Amy Newth on our call. And she helped me coin the phrase, the integrity gap. The integrity gap is the gap between the things I know I ought to do and what I'm actually doing. And this is just another way to unpack that a little bit here. In other words, I heard Dave Ramsey once say, most of us don't have a knowledge problem. We have a behavior problem. In other words, we know the things we ought to do. We just need to check if we're really doing them or not. And so while I would encourage us to constantly be in the audiobooks, be in the books, right, and continue to bombard your brain with big ideas, it's not just having the big ideas. So I coached a number of people over, let's say, 15 years, and Wes and Monroe were some of the first, right? One of the things I'll ask people constantly is, hey, have you read The 1 Minute Manager, especially if they're in the field? Have you read The 1 Minute Manager? And people are like, yeah. I'll be like, hey, tell me some of the ideas from that book. Now, for those of you who have not read it, I highly recommend it. It'll cost you $20 for a 100-page book. And you might say, boy, it might have some beautiful drawings in there. It doesn't. It's just a really good book. So don't let the fact that it's a really short and easy read lead you to believe that there aren't profound truths in that book. The 1 Minute Manager, and I would even suggest the new 1 Minute Manager, which is revised, but basically the same concept. And the vast majority of people that I talk to cannot recall one of the 3 pillars from the 1 Minute Manager. I'm not going to dive into them now. What I'm driving at, though, is it's not enough to just read the content or bombard the brain with the ideas. Let's see if we can recall them. And I'll encourage you to do what you do to be able to recall big ideas. One of the ways, if you just listen to an audiobook, is to tell somebody about the big idea that just struck you today. I've loved this at Vector, that there's always opportunities to share with other people, whether it be a workshop or a team meeting or an event, where I can share with people big ideas that I'm considering right now, big ideas that I'm excited about. So there's what I know, and then there's what I can recall or what I can remember. And then there's how I feel about what I know. To actually dive in with what I know. And for some of you, this is your greatest opportunity. You've had thoughts, maybe you've even got your favorite book, maybe you've got your 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and you've got it journaled, or you've got your notes in the margins, you've highlighted it. Maybe your next opportunity when you read through it again is to ask yourself, how do I feel about what I know? And very often that is tied to the last one here, because sometimes there could be guilt. Hey, I know the things I should be doing here, but I'm not doing it. If I have a negative feeling attached to what I know, that may diminish my ability to actually do it. So while we're always trying to figure out what I'm going to do, I would encourage you to perhaps to consider how I feel about what I know as an opportunity for you. If this is new to you, lean into it a little bit and ask yourself, all right, I believe this to be true. What else? How does that make me feel? Very often becoming consciously aware of how you feel about the knowledge or the idea or the philosophies can help you switch gears. I've noticed that Drew has joined us. Drew Frank would be one of, he would have a great example, but it's not the only one. Drew would basically take what I would call published journal entries. He would take all of his knowledge about, let's say, something like PDI, and he'd put it all into a 1-page document. Now, not because that was the sum of his knowledge. I'm willing to bet that freehand, Drew could probably fill up several pages on PDI, let's say, or you could fill in several pages on prospecting or gifting. The point is, though, by coming and distilling it down into simple content, like 1-page document, I think you could argue that Drew has kind of transcended not just I know it, not just I remember it. By the time he's mastered it and he can teach it in very short order, chances are very good it's going to close the gap on the fact that he's doing it. But the mastery piece of that would be underrated. I would suggest that if we could, as a group, be able to distill what we know and be able to teach it, then that's going to, I would say, ensure that we assimilate the content, assimilate the ideas, not just have a big idea, but actually be able to convert that into something more meaningful. So, Johnny, that's some content there. And if we've got Drew, that might be a curious segue. What do you think here, John?
I think that I saw a lot of decision trains pop up in the box, and I would love you to set the stage with that concept. And for some, you've heard it. It's like Hotel California. That never gets old, I don't think, not for me. But if you haven't,
Sure.
it's a kind of a cool place to start. So I'm going to before I go to another guest, I want to put it back to you to share your experience teaching this, share some of the experiences that have come out of this. Just share a little, do a little highlight of this song, because I think it's a great one. And again, I saw it blowing up in the chat. So if you could, I'd love to hear about it.
Happy to do it. I did not invent the decision train. I'm a big fan of it. I actually saw this on a tract that was at a college that I attended back in 1993, and it was Bill Bright and the campus crew people. They're still functioning and serving students even today. And they were talking about, well, what happens if you make a decision and then you don't feel like that decision is as, what if the feelings wane? What if I don't feel as fired up about that decision as I did last week, let's say? And it really invoked this concept here of feelings driving the train. That's how most of us function, is if I feel good, I'll do the things, and then I'll make more decisions to double down and keep doing the things. This is how most of society functions. If I feel good, I'll keep going and I'll keep doing the right things. The challenge with this is that it's really hard for us to feel great all the time. I might even say impossible to feel great all the time. In fact, in my case, I could say this probably resonates with many of you. I can count on the fact that my feelings will let me down. If it's time for me to get on the phone and make that important phone call, whether it be to a vendor, whether it be to an event, whether that be to a representative or an employee, if I don't feel like it, and that means that that is going to break down the train, I've got a problem. And I love the fact that this is requested a lot, because this really speaks to the idea of legacy achievers not relying on feeling to move forward. And this is important for kids to hear. This is important for as early in the process as possible, anybody you're working with, to understand that they don't have to feel fired up all the time for them to be successful. And I was so honored when I went to South Denver and many of your offices, and one of these is printed up. But this is just my weak sauce attempt at graphic design on, I think I used PowerPoint at the time to draw it out. A simple train. It's something you can draw on a napkin. Feelings, actions, decisions. The problem with this is, what if your engine breaks down? What if I don't feel like it? Will I do the action? Maybe, maybe not. Or worse, what if I'm in college and I'm questioning, hey, I'm not feeling good right now. Maybe this shouldn't be my major because I don't feel good right now. Folks, there are so many things that can go into those feelings lying to me in that moment. I ate a bad burrito. I didn't sleep last night. I've been stressed and pressed over 12 weeks of college. I'm just suggesting that if we are going to have our feelings drive the train, unfortunately, it's very difficult to have legacy achievement. If feelings are determining the action, it's hard to have the staying power that I need. What we've tried to equip our kids with, what I've tried to talk about for, I'm going to guess, about 20 years now, is the idea that our decisions, our commitments drive the train. What we believe to be important, our core values, what we've chosen to be the most important thing, has to be what drives my actions. Another way of putting this is to act my way into feeling, not the other way around. I'm pretty careful to make very clear that I'm not saying that feelings don't matter. Feelings absolutely matter. It's just that we very often have them in the wrong order. If we're only going to serve or worship the feeling alone, I'm going to be stuck, and it's going to be hard for me to succeed in anything as a human being over the long haul, because you don't hit $1 million in Cutco sales as a CSP because you felt awesome all the time, right? A Gino Liacotti at many times, I'm sure, did not feel like reaching out to his old customers. At many times did not feel like getting on the phone and setting up appointments. Why does he do it? Well, he knows it's the right thing to do. He knows he likes meeting with people. So his actions then line up with his decisions, his commitments, his core values. And very much like when you decide, man, I don't feel like getting to the gym today, I'm just going to go. I don't have to feel like it. I'm just going to go. I'm going to have my action honor my commitment. I have it in my calendar. I'm going to go. And very often when we're done working out, we're like, oh man, I'm so glad I did this. And it's not just the gym, it's just relationships. I often tell the story, and it was Avatar that my wife and I watched, which came out, I think, like 12 years ago. It was a really long time. And our children at the time were like little. So we needed a babysitter for us to go out and see, like, I think it's a 3-hour movie. It might even be more. For some reason, we're having a fight, and I don't, whatever. It probably was inconsequential, but in the moment, I was really heated. And I actually gave thought. You know, the pull down menu in the brain comes down, and one says, send the babysitter home. I don't want to go on this date. I love my wife, and I knew that, but I didn't like her in that moment. I'm not happy. I'm very upset. And I'm like, dude, you can't escalate things. You have to go on the date. You don't have to like it, but you got to go. So I was struggling. The main decision that I did follow through on was to go on the date. But in true confession, I didn't enjoy it, and I let her know it. So I normally open the door for her. Well, I slammed the door. Well, way to go. Chivalrous, but mostly terrible. We drove to the theater. I bought the ticket. I like handed it to her without making eye contact or speaking to her. You know, and part of me's like, dude, you're being a little harsh. But also I'm thinking, if I don't act like this, she won't learn nothing. So normally we would buy popcorn. That would be our routine. I walked right by the popcorn and sat down thinking she'd find me. And fortunately, my wife is amazing. If you've met her, you would see, and you would know, Christy bought her own popcorn, found me on date night in the theater somewhere, and sat down beside me. She's a trooper. During the movie, and again, it's a long movie, but the feelings subsided, the rage quelled, and all of a sudden I'm like, what even were we fighting about? And I couldn't remember. To this day, I can't remember what I was so angry about. That some of you have this like angel and devil on the shoulder conversation. It's like our conscious brains are having a debate. Angel's going, dude, you are ruining date night. And like the devil is going, no, man, we're angry. The angel's like, what are we angry about even? It's like, I don't know, but I'm mad. And I decided I didn't want to be mad anymore. So I just I put my hand up on the arm rest, and she took my hand, and I knew it was going to be okay. And I'm glad I didn't cancel the date. I wish I'd regulated a little faster, but at least we figured it out. And I would say now at 48, my wife and I are it's easier for us to navigate these. Not easy, but we will typically listen faster. We'll fight before it escalates. We can catch it and say even things like, honey, what we're wrestling with right now, I know I love you. I know you love me. Our feelings are raging right now. Let's just put a pin in it tonight, and we'll come back at it tomorrow. It's been 23 years since we met. I'll say things like, Christy, this one is a 23-year problem. We feel differently about it right now than we will tomorrow. Let's just come back at it. We'll come back at it. I guess what I'm driving at, and there's different versions of the story if you've heard it on recording here. They don't need to be repeated today. The bottom line is, if we have our actions line up with our core values, the feelings come back. The feelings follow. And I'm sharing this to a group that, boy, many of us have been here a dozen, 15, 20 plus years. I just celebrated 29 years. And if I'm only here because I'm feeling great, then I'm not here. And frankly, if my marriage relies on me feeling in love all the time, we don't make it. No question. The only way that we can make it is both of us. She messes up too. Both of us are committed to the right actions, the right moves that are in line with our core values, not how we're necessarily feeling in the moment. So I'll come up for air. And what's beautiful about this extended session is that we do have time for questions, thoughts, or if you're looking for us to clarify it all, I'd certainly love to be able to let some of that breathe here, but I'll defer to John Kane here.
Yeah, thanks, TB. It's good to dive into some of that, and I can sure relate to a lot of those things. I would just simply say, if you were to throw into the chat either a question or a thought, something that's landed so far with you, just want to do a little check-in here, almost a third of the way through, and just check into what's connecting or landing. What are you appreciating? Just love to hear from a few people and see what's coming up. We'll pause. If there's a question, feel free to unmute and introduce yourself and ask it. But love to see what's emerging so far.
Many typing here. What I'd encourage you as well is perhaps if you've got an experience or a story you'd like to share, we'd like a shorter version of it, but an opportunity where you've made the decision despite how you feel and you push through and you manage to act your way into feeling. That would be sweet for us as well. Mike Monroe says, if I didn't act this way, she won't learn anything. Yeah, well, easy for me to justify myself excellent behavior. Yeah. Again, I'm trying to actually model this as well, by the way. And I've appreciated the fact that at Vector, I could speak my mind like this and not be awesome all the time. In fact, show many of the young managers, the young married women and men in our business that, hey, you don't have to be perfect. You have to be awesome all the time, even to have a great marriage. The reality is there are mistakes being made. Mistakes were made. And I'm not done. I'm not done. Mistake-free living isn't the goal. In this case, I'm trying to walk you through even how I mostly acted terrible, but the one decision I made, the one branch in the road, date or no date. And I was like, dude, have the date. Go on the date and trust that this is going to be okay. That was valuable.
Yeah. You think about running an office or running a business as a CSP, there's so many things that come up that aren't great. There's so many things that make you not feel good. And your ability to move forward is so powerful. And that's why I love this simple concept. This isn't a hard one to remember. It's, hey, do the thing. And you might end up feeling great, even if it doesn't feel great in the beginning. David wrote, you don't have to feel great to be great. I like that. And Shane shared, hey, I didn't want to go to the gym this morning and I was grumpy. I showed up anyway. Feels great today. So cool to see some of that.
Can I just key in on David's note here?
Yeah.
This is it, David, right? I don't have to feel great to be great. Let me even take it further. Even if I don't feel good today, I can still do good. You see what I'm driving at, right? There's times where I'm like, I don't feel good. I'm like, well, I know I am good, even if I don't feel good right now. And I share that because many of us on the call, we wrestle sometimes with, we're feeling bad about feeling bad. That's not a fun cycle to be in if you've been in that one, right? I feel bad about feeling bad, and it spirals. What I'm encouraging here is I am not my feelings. We can just pause for a second. This has grown a little bit, right? Like I am not my feelings. Just because I don't feel good today doesn't mean I'm off the hook doing good, especially if I'm serving people. If I don't feel good today, that doesn't mean I can't be a great dad. If I don't feel good today, it doesn't mean I can't serve my customers. If I don't feel good today, it doesn't mean I can't serve my clients or my employees. I've got to show up. And we call it playing hurt. I got to play hurt sometimes. So my encouragement to you is I am not my feelings. And that means that what David says here is so true. You don't have to feel great to be great is what he's sharing here. And I'd encourage that as a truth. Another truth, though, is that I don't have to feel great to do great. And there's a flip side of that. Just because I don't feel great doesn't mean I have to do the not great. Let me even take it further. Just because I feel negative doesn't mean I have to act negative. Or just because I'm frustrated doesn't mean I have to act frustrated. Again, a lot of my leadership principles do come from being a parent. I could tell my son, I know you're frustrated. I know you're angry. You don't have to act angry. You don't have to throw a punch because you're angry. I know we just had the Oscars. This is timely and unfortunately now not evergreen. I'm saying we don't have to act on our feelings. And I say it because our feelings will rang sometimes. And as emotional beings, we're like, I have no choice but to do what the feelings say. And that is not only not true, that very often will lead us into peril. I have to send the angry text. I don't. Actually, it is appropriate very often, friends, for us to distrust our gut. It is very appropriate at times to distrust my emotional state. If I know I'm not in a good spot, it is appropriate for me to tap the brakes and slow down and actually make no big decisions right now. Do the things I need to do. I'm not saying cancel appointments. I am saying now's not the time for me to decide to buy the thing. Now's not the time for me to decide to take that job. Now's not the time for me to decide to work that show or not work that show if I'm in an extreme emotional state, because my feelings lie to me all the time. Your feelings lie to you all the time. So to encourage you, you can make great moves, great behaviors, great decisions, great actions, despite how you're feeling. And I'm encouraging you because you've done it before, whether it's the gym, whether you decided to get up today and put some makeup on and you didn't feel like it. I'm encouraging you that you have many occasions all the time where you don't feel like doing the right thing and you do the right thing. Here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. Catch yourself doing this early and often. Catch yourself. One of the things I love most about journaling is to be able to capture those thoughts, capture those moments, capture those wins. And if I can reinforce that positive behavior by catching myself and celebrating the win, hear me right. Sometimes it doesn't feel like a win. In real time, I'll tell you, sometimes I made the right move and it felt wrong. It's been like, send the angry text, finish him. And that's the wrong decision. And not only have I not done it, I feel bad about not doing it. I'm like, you let them get away. That's not it. The right move was to stay down. I'm going to feel differently about this, extend grace. And when we talk it through, we'll sort it out. It'll be fine. If I pause and go, you know what, today I was angry, didn't act on it. I actually chilled. And I'm so glad I did, because I was reading it wrong. With all the information I had, I was justified in my anger. Once I got more information, it was all fine as a misunderstanding. To celebrate the fact that I stayed my hand, I exercised discipline in that moment. That's valuable. That gives me a shot of being self-regulating in the future as well, becoming aware of how I'm feeling and adjusting my behavior accordingly. I heard an excellent quote yesterday that really speaks to this. And this is a counselor in the Northeast. His name is Tom Pucciarello. Tom Pucciarello said, the moments of your past only come alive when you think about them. And it's so fresh. I don't have a slide for this yet. I'll say it again, though. Maybe somebody can post this in the chat. The moments of your past only come alive when you think about them. And I would say that this is one of the things I've celebrated about journaling all these years, is that when I write them down and then review them later, I get to think about them. So that when that moment where I didn't send the angry text and I wrote it down and celebrated the moment, give myself a little check, a little pat on the back, if you will. And then I read through that and I'm like, man, I'm grateful for that moment. That's good. And that moment of my past comes alive. It actually informs my future. That's an appropriate positive loop to be in. Jim Rohn used to say 50% of the value of journaling is reviewing what I've written. Man, if that's true, making my past come alive, practicing the knowledge, changing how I feel about the knowledge, closing the gap between what I know I should be doing and what I'm actually doing. Journaling just seems to be probably, I'm going to say, take out the word probably. Journaling for me has been the number one way for me to study what I know, celebrate what I know, and close the gap in terms of what I'm doing compared to what I know as well. So I know we're a little bit all over here, Johnny, and I'll come up for air here.
Yeah. I see that Shayla has joined us, and Shayla has shared a quote with me via text, and I would like to read it, and then I'd like to invite Shayla's voice in for a moment. She just shared that leadership development has inspired her to see what's possible to consistently grow. And I love this part, that it also allows her to feel human. And when I think sometimes about learning things and being taught, sometimes we feel guilty, like we're not enough, or that we haven't done enough, or we're not learning fast enough. And I think one of the things I've appreciated about the way Cutco and Vector and leadership development have brought things to people, it's with a lot of grace and with the opportunity to make mistakes and try again and have a fresh start. And Shayla, I thought you reflected that, and you just shared that hearing everyone's path and their story has been an inspiration to you, because people are at all different stages of their business and growth. And if you think about this call, we have such a wide range of people in different stages and phases of their career. Shayla, I'd just like to invite you, if you'd like to share anything else, or share, whether it's a teaching, a learning, a nugget, some things that on your journey that you've taken here. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for submitting that. And I saw you were able, I know you're not able to be here the whole time, but I just wanted to say thanks for sending that. Anything you'd want to share with the group?
Yeah, I would just say that even just popping in for this last 15 minutes here is just listening to Trent's reminders of all these facts. We're so lucky to have this culture of growth mindset and people that just want to continue to help us do better, be better. And whether it's in the business or outside of the business, we're so lucky to be able to have people at all different places of the business to be able to learn from and to lean on. And my path has been so different from being reps or sales promotion manager and coming back to being a DM after different roles, that I'm so grateful that I can turn to so many different people in the business, no matter where I've been at, to grow and to get that support. And everyone's started in the same place. And I think that's so powerful. So I'm really grateful for all the leadership calls we get, hearing people's stories through the podcast. I think that it's such a great tool that we have, and really, really fortunate to be able to have this culture here.
Thanks, Shayla. Really appreciate it. I saw Jay Brad here as well today, and I think one of the things that Trent and I have reflected on is I think Jay Brad's been either at all or most of the master classes since they were since the beginning. And what's fascinating to me is if you get to know Jay Brad and you know his history and you know his background, you know that he's one of the most accomplished leaders and trainers, developers, and people in the history of vector marketing. And if you really know his story, you know that he knows a lot and has a lot to share. And I'm always fascinated because he's still such a student. He asks great questions. And if you're familiar with the work with Cutco Cares, he's still looking for ways to contribute and make the culture better. And I saw this firsthand when we were in Maui, as you know, just doing diligent, simple work in support of people. So Jay Brad, I would love to invite your voice in, and I guess I would ask you, to share any thoughts you have with, all these different communities and areas about your journey as a leader and some of the things that have helped you, whether it's from the Masterclass series or just some of your reflections on that. I'd just love to hear your voice today.
Well, all right. Well, thanks, John. A little bit of this, I wasn't prepared, as you probably can tell. I don't know, for me, as I've gotten older and been in the business longer, it seems more important to stay involved and plugged into, the newest training. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And sometimes that goes in my head a lot, because there's all these innovations with social media and everything. And I get Mike Monroe's newsletter and I read it once and I'm completely overwhelmed. I'm like, I can't do any of this. And I read it again and I think, well, maybe I could do this. And then it takes you 3 times to go through it all to start to, formulate a little plan. So I don't know, maybe I'm slower than other folks. That could be it. But I can just remember a pivotal moment. This would have been 15 years ago, where it became apparent to me I needed to really identify my core life philosophies. And a lot of things changed when I just started thinking about those. And for my last few years, probably 3 years as a region manager, the only thing I really did was preach these 4 life philosophies, trying to get this in the fiber of the Western region at the time. And, it was connection, execution, simplicity, and gratitude. These were the four things. And the first one was gratitude. But when I returned to Vector in 2014, there was something that got added for me, and it was just contribution, to those 4 core values, which is where I don't know if I decided contribution was going to be important before we started the Cutco Cares projects or it was after. I don't know which came first exactly, but it became really apparent. And I really find that if I think about those things every day, even if it's only for a few minutes here or there, just by having it on a poster or saying it or sharing it with somebody, it makes a big difference. Same thing with our just our core values. You probably have a set of core values or pillars that your division manager or you had created. And just the idea of, I feel like I have to continually refresh those thoughts. It doesn't happen naturally, right? Human nature is to gravitate toward mediocrity, I think. And so it takes effort to not. And I just recognizing that makes me feel like if there's ever a chance to, learn from somebody, especially a lot of these master classes. I mean, I get tons out of every single master class. So that's some of the reasons that I come to them. I figure if I'm not doing anything else super important. I was late today because I was on a PC, a one-on-one with a district manager. But if I can ever be a part of it, and there's knowledge being shared, that's only going to make me more effective in my job and more effective at contributing to other people. So I don't know, that helps.
Yeah, imagine if he was prepared. Sometimes it's just going to be great. You just got to go there. Jay Brett, thanks for everything. Thanks for sharing that. And I think the part of the reason for us sharing and involving is, no one over here in leadership development department thinks that we've got the market cornered on leadership thoughts and philosophies. So much of what this is about, it's about collecting. It's the group collective. It's about bringing people together to share their journey, their story, the things that mattered, because we all connect and relate differently, to different things and different people. And I think inviting in some other voices is important. Joe, I'd like to invite your voice in today. We wouldn't be sitting here today doing this thing exactly. I'm sure we'd be doing something. I don't know what it would be if in your own very powerful but gentle way hadn't encouraged me to really think through my hiring process. And I remember the things you said. Hey, I know it's going to be a lot more expensive hiring someone and bringing them in from Canada. And you were answering all the objections. You said, but I really think you ought to talk to Trent. And I know that you were there right in the beginning of Trent's career. And as part of my intention here is, I want to honor pieces of that. I'd love just to invite you to share either some things you've appreciated about leadership development, some things you've appreciated about Trent, how you've been impacted on the journey. But really, you lit the match here, and I want to honor that today as well. And I know that Trent honors you consistently, as do many others, because of the way you've led for decades. And so it's awesome that you could be here today. Can you possibly share a few thoughts with everybody?
Absolutely, John, and it's a pleasure to do so. And as you point to me as someone that played a role for Trent to be here in this role that he's been at so well, doing so well for now a decade in this role, but in doing great in so many other ways for so many years. If it wasn't for my wife, Jen, who worked one day of Vector in my 34-year career, Trent wouldn't be here, because I was traveling as a new division coordinator, and I stuck my wife, who didn't know what a table knife or trimmer or anything was. I said, I need you to run pre-interviews today. And wouldn't you know, the one day she works, she interviews Trent Booth. And so good thing for my wife, Jen. But Trent has been an influential person in my career since 1993, someone that I've just loved working with and building with. But Trent has also played such a significant role in some of the people that are on this call from Canada. Angie Buckingham McDougall, was someone that started when Trent and I were working together. And I think she'd be the first to say that as much as it was my office, Trent was very, very influential in helping her develop as a young rep, a college student, and seeing the opportunity beyond, and creating an environment where a woman wanted to be a part of a business. And initially, before the Vonnie Fasts and the Angie McDougalls, there were just a few guys together starting the Kenrock division. And through the work of Trent Booth, creating the environment that we worked hard to create, it made it more comfortable and safe for others to join. And as he's played a role with Angie, he's played a role with Shayla Way, as he's played a role with Mitch, and now Johnny St. Pierre. He's continued to help shape the leaders. But when I think of Trent, there are really three things that come to my mind, and he mentioned one. One is his just innate desire to help others. And I think amongst the most successful people in the history of our business, whether it's people that just love having customers get Cutco, or just managers helping people, wanting to help others and give them better tools to help others, or whether it's our great team in Olean that just loves serving the field or serving others, and our support people. That's such a common thread, and he had that from the beginning. Many ways I saw him go beyond his role as a rep, and then even as an assistant. You know, there were times where I was like, hey, Trent, we got to get out there and sell some knives. I know you love being in here helping people, but that's clearly what he was drawn from the beginning. The other thing, and I think it's one of the greatest compliments you can give an individual, is being curious. And he's just always been curious. I mean, his big opportunity leaving the nest that we had in Calgary back then was to go to Montreal. But even that quest came with some conditions, and it was to save $10,000, which saving $10,000 in 2022 as a young person's a lot. Saving $10,000 in 1993, 94 was even more substantial. But also we said, we need you to learn French, and we need you to be strong in French to go to Montreal. And he dove right into accomplishing both of those. And his curiosity, J. Brad Britton mentioned, you know, you can get to a place where you feel like you know everything, and that's just probably the worst place ever to feel. And Trent is just always, no matter how much he knows about certain things, has been curious about learning more, a better way, a better strategy, and being on the forefront with that. And then, you know, I think so much about being a leader and being in this leadership position that Trent is in is having leadership qualities. And sometimes I think, I don't know, fancify, is that even a word? We overcomplicate things. The simple things matter. You know, I think one of the greatest books are those things you learn in kindergarten, or that book about kindergarten, everything you need to know kindergarten. When I think of Trent, trustworthy, honest, dependable, hard worker. I mean, I can remember, and there's stories where working on his craft, he would run interviews to empty chairs. You know, just the simple but powerful, and probably the greatest leadership skills are just those types of traits that you look for in people. And yes, he can be the dynamic stage speaker, and he can put on a show and do all those things, but that's all on top of the foundation of his great leadership skills that attracted me to him right from the beginning of his career. And I know has attracted so many other people to not only want to learn about the decision train, but want to be on the Trent Booth train as it goes further and further and higher and higher. And so it's been a pleasure to be a part of the journey with you, Trent. We celebrate together your influence, and we look forward to what's to come in the years ahead. I'm grateful.
Joe, thank you. And for everyone who's on the call, I'd like you to consider what it would feel like to be able to be in Joe's shoes and be able to share a testimonial like that about someone else. And I'd also like you to think about, you know, what is it like to be on the receiving end of that? Because each and every one of you in your own way, and one of the things that we dive into in the relationship exercise, there are people in your life that feel the way about you that Joe feels about Trent. There are people you've poured into on the journey here. And I think today is a great day to really take stock of not just what you're doing, you know, whether you have your idea of the position or your goals and the things that you've done, but really considering, like, what is it that we're doing here? I think that many of us have had a deep and abiding love for this company for so long because we love who we've become, and we love who we're still becoming through the influence of other people. And so while today is about highlighting this anniversary, and certainly some nice things being said about Trent and the company. It really is about you as you consider, and as we consider as a company, what type of a leadership group and team, what type of people are we going to need to have the staying power, to have the, the energy to move forward. And it's not about one person in one department. It's about each person in their place, bringing their best to the table. And, as we set our thoughts and hopes, up, on what this could be about today, we were hoping it could be, through this recognition and invigoration, a chance to reflect, a chance to pause. Yeah, we're going to play some of the songs, but I don't know if this happens to you. Sometimes when I hear on the song on the radio, it reminds me of a time and place in my life of where I was and what I was doing. So, and kind of playing some of these leadership development songs over and over again, hopefully what you're experiencing is an opportunity to really reflect inward. The request came up earlier, Trent, and I think in terms of one of Joe's comments, I'd love to ask you to take a moment and share your experience teaching the favorite things list. Just a really simple thing to do and to teach someone to do. And from my perspective, one of the most important things I keep doing with my kids, with my wife, with myself, with my family. And I know it's, it's kind of like, it's so simple, but I think, I don't know if this is a Jim Rohn quote. I don't know who said it, but it's so simple, I don't do it or something like that. So I might not be quoting anybody, but that's why
I think that's Jerry Austin. It works so well, I stopped doing it.
Maybe it was Jerry Austin. That makes sense. A lot of his words are ingrained in the track in my brain. Would you share that, Trent, with everybody as a teaching moment today? Just your experience with that exercise, and I don't know how you want to do it. I know you do it different ways, but I'd love to hear that.
Here's what I'm thinking. It works best when everybody actually does it. So I'll invite you, if you've got a journal, or you can pick up your phone or piece of paper, somewhere where you can write some ideas or tap ideas. The invitation here is to think about things that you love doing. What are some things that you love doing? Favorite things, if you will, right? What makes life taste good, feel good, smell good? What things you go like, oh, now, for me, my birthday's in March. So March is that time of year. Usually, and today is a different day here in New Jersey. Usually it's a day where the spring springs, like where the flowers start to come out. I'm like, oh, I love this time of year. It's on my list of favorite things. You know what else is on my list of favorite things is having a nice journal to write in. I'm not even advertising. I should sell journals, but I would say having a beautiful, especially being a left-handed person, lefties in the world, you know what I'm talking about, where it's just with writing with a nice pen on paper. I've actually worked on even writing in cursive. It's one of my favorite things, is to write and have things look beautiful. Other things that might be on your list, it could be anything, right? So I'll give you a few moments to consider, but I'll throw some brainstorming ideas your way. And this is not to sell you on mine, although if you like them, go ahead and take them. I've stolen many of yours. Some favorite things. I remember when my kids were just babies, that new baby smell is on my list of favorite things. And Mallory, I know, right? I think you still probably have new baby smell, but it's almost gone. When they start walking, that goes away. And I didn't know that. Oh, I also love it when they start walking. Favorite things list. What is on your favorite things list? I love having a nugget. I love hearing something at a team meeting or an audio book or on a call like this, a masterclass where I'm like, oh, it's a nugget. And separately, something like, oh, I know that to be true. That's new verbiage, or that's a new language or a new quote to support that thing. It's on my list of favorite things. I love these headphones. I'm going to say these are the Bose headphones. I love the sound quality of listening to audio. I love also on my list of favorite things, playing a vinyl record. So these could be simple. I'm inviting you to write down things you love doing. How about some food items? What are some of your favorite things in regards to food? Something as simple like, what's your comfort food? For me, it's if I just take a plate of nachos, melt some cheese on it, and have, I'm talking old school, gross, just a jar of salsa. That for me is comfort food. I don't know why, but I've also recognized it as being one of my favorite things. When I'm in Canada, and I did get to enjoy one last week, Sleeman Honey Brown. There's many other Honey Brown beers. There's many other beers that I enjoy, but Sleeman Honey Brown is one of my favorite beers. Daniel's laughing. Good. This is the way it should be. You don't have to have my list, by the way. If you've never had Honey Brown, I invite you to experiment, lean into it. What else for you is your favorite thing? Some of your favorite things. They can be free. They can be expensive. I love figuring a song out on my guitar. I don't get to play all the time. When I do play my guitar, figuring out a new song or a solo, man. So many would call this also, yes. Isaiah says, bucket list, yes. So many of these are bucket list items. I love these because it's not like I check it off and don't do it. I'm like, no, I love doing this. I'm going to do these more. As you're writing, I'll invite you to continue thinking about the favorite things list. I love fresh sheets on my bed. Oh, man. Now here's a double down, advanced one. Ready? In the wintertime, it's cold. I love ironing said sheets and jumping into bed with a hot sheet. If you've never tried it, don't take my word for it. Experiment. What's on your list of favorite things? What makes life smell good, taste good, feel good? I don't golf often, but when I do golf, I don't hit very many of these. I smash the ball. I get all of it. I'm telling you, I don't even care if it goes in the water or in the woods. If I got all of it, and you know what I'm talking about if you've done it, it's one of my favorite things. But also, I love just driving around the course with a buddy or several buddies and enjoying nature. I'll say it every time. I'll say, hey, what is the saying? It's my worst day at golf's better than my best day at work. It's not super true for me, but I like saying it because it's fun. That for me is one of my favorite things, is recalling some of my grandfather's favorite sayings and sharing them. Can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. I love bringing them to you, by the way. So many people will laugh at the funny sayings that George Douglas Coombe used to say, my grandfather, and celebrate. It's on my list of favorite things. I love a good glove save. I'm a goalie now in ice hockey. I love a great glove save. What's on your list of favorite things? I love driving home with my youngest daughter, Rebecca. She's 15, and we've just started doing this. She'll hold my hand. I'll just throw my hand up, and we'll just hold hands. And it's kind of weird, but also not weird. And she doesn't pull her hand away, I've noticed. She's 15, and at some point she might not do it anymore. But right now, it's one of my favorite things. What's on your list of favorite things? As I made this first list in 1996, I think I stole it from a Tony Robbins interview, and he was on with I don't know, just an end of year interview. And so I give credit where credit is due. After making this list, I'm like, this list is robust, and it's many pages now in my journal and journals. I keep adding to it. I noticed two things. One was when I started doing these things, I'm like, oh, these are on my favorite things list. And now I had conscious awareness that I was doing a favorite thing. It was a pause. It was an awareness moment. And I didn't even know at the time, but like beautiful serotonin, then body goes, oh, this is a favorite thing. Send. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling technically high. I'm feeling really good in that moment. And it's repeatable. It's duplicatable. It's actually even, I would say, healthy. So I would notice when I was doing some of my favorite things, and that brightened life just a little bit. But not just that, I'm like, I love doing these things. Look at this list. Most of them don't take a lot of time. Most of them are free or low cost, or I've already spent the money. Most of them I know how to do, and it's not hard to manufacture. And most of them I could do almost every single day, or at least very often. So I not only would pause when I was organically doing these things, and that brightened life, I started manufacturing opportunities to do more of those favorite things. Hey, here's one. Here's a new one, newer. Joe Cardillo, I could talk to him anytime. I could talk to a mentor in the business anytime. I'd have direct access to him. I'm pretty sure I could email him at any given moment, and he'd schedule a call with me. I could even text him, I'll bet. But we just wouldn't talk. We'd go months, or we'd see each other at SLC and be like, oh, we should talk more. So we paused. We said, let's talk monthly. Let's actually talk every month. I know I'm better as a leader, as a dad, as a son, if I talk to Joe Cardillo. Let's talk every month. And before we are done our call, we'll set our next call. It's on my list of favorite things, talking to Joe Cardillo. And for you, it might be talking to your mentor. Here's another one. The random text of awesome. I don't know if this started as one of my favorite things or became a favorite thing, but the random text of awesome is so simple. It's a text or phone call where I reach out to somebody that I love or care about, somebody I've not reached out to for a while. Maybe somebody on my favorites list, but maybe it's deeper on the list. Maybe you've received one from me because you're on my time hop and a memory from all those years ago comes up on my time hop. And I'll send you a video. This day in history 5 years ago. So I'll send that note out. I'll send a text to my wife. I'll say, hey, this day 4 years ago, look what we did. We're hanging out. Remember that date? It's not focusing so well, but it's fun to remember and send a note. And I'll say something as simple as, Joe, this is Trent and the random text of awesome. I'm simply texting to let you know I love you. That is all. Sometimes Drew Frank will even pick up. I'll be like, Drew, this is the random call of awesome. I'm calling to tell you I love you. That is it. Now, if he has time, we can hang out. Here's what I know. That's a quick call. So he often will hit the green button for me. Because it might just be a quick call, you know what I'm saying? And it feels good. Even if I get voicemail and leave that for a Mallory. Mallory, this is Trent. This is the random text of awesome. I love you. Click. That's it. And even if she doesn't remember, doesn't acknowledge it, doesn't thank me, doesn't matter. It's already complete. It's already beautiful. It's on my list of favorite things. There are 2 times I found 2 seasons, I would say, in life where I send a lot of random texts of awesome. Are you ready for how to apply this? If you like this, don't take my word for it. Try it. I'm talking to you, Lauren Puller. Try this out sometime where you just send a random text of awesome and see how it feels. I'll do it doing 2 states. 1, I'm having an amazing day. And is my deep conviction, if I'm having an amazing day and I'm in leadership, it's not just for me. So I got to spread that love all over y'all. I got to send out as many of those random texts as I possibly can. That's important, high ROI work. I'm investing into relationships. CSPs, call your favorite customers on those days without an ask. Hey, I'm thinking about my favorite customers, and you're the first one I'm calling. You're the 6th person I'm calling. I love you. It's weird. I know. I'm just saying it. Thank you so much for being my customer. You do it your way. So I'll do it when I'm feeling great. Also, when I'm feeling not great. I will say this for me has been one of my go-to moves when I'm feeling low, when I'm below the line. My son would say, when I'm in my bag, I start sending random texts of awesome. And sometimes, folks, it helps me regulate out. Sometimes remembering how great the relationships in my life are enough to change how I feel. So I'll act my way out of feeling in that one. It's a twofer there. Sometimes Krista go, how was your day? I'm like, I sent 23 random texts of awesome. She goes, oh, hard day. I'm like, yep. But I feel better. It was a good day. You know, it was productive, man. If I don't do anything else, but I send out 23 random texts of awesome, with that, for some of the people that I know and that know me and love me, they can check in. One of my favorite things is people checking in. And by the way, one of my favorite things now is receiving random texts of awesome. Because yeah, if people say, hey, Trent, it's been a while. I'm like, yeah, send one. If you go, hey, I haven't had one from Trent for a while, that means you just send me a random text of awesome. It's just a fun way to touch those relationships. And we haven't spent a lot of time on that here today, but that is a free one, by the way, just to invest into. I would love to see, I think we're going to take a break here soon, coming in or out of, if you would give us the gift of sharing one or more of either one that you've already heard, a favorite thing that resonated with you and you wrote it down, or one that we haven't mentioned already. We'll try to keep it appropriate. Some of mine cannot be shared on a Zoom session, but they're on my list of favorite things. It's in my journal. It's personal. It's for me. But I'll invite you to drop some of those in the chat. We would love to see what your favorite things are. We love it. Jake talking start, stop, continue. That's one of the greatest hits. That's already there. Over to you, John and Kane.
Sneaky. That was sneaky.
I like what he did there.
You know, I would like to invite, you know, I've been scrolling through. I'd like to, I know Drew's here. And when I think back to some of the origins of the work, Mike Monroe shared some of his thoughts. I know that early on in your career, Trent, you shared with me so many times that you were blessed to be able to talk to great people in our business. And you've shared, many, many times those stories. Drew, I was listening to you speak. It might have been an SLC or a major event where you were sharing how essentially some key relationships. You talked about Lloyd, and you also had some really nice things to say at that event about Trent and kind of your journey together. So I'd love to hear from you, Drew, if you'd be willing to share. I'd love you to share, hey, what were some of the things that really helped you on the journey? Some of the lessons, some of the things that you actually learned and applied, because we know that you're someone who you learn it and do it. That's been a trademark. But I also just reflecting on you've heard a lot of what's been said here today, but I'd love your voice to emerge here today.
Thanks, John. And I could take up the rest of the time with things that I could say about Trent. I will try to go as fast as I typically do on stage at SLC. But I think among Lloyd and Wes and and certainly Habuki, who I started with, Trent, is on. That's my Mount Rushmore of vector influences of people who have shaped the way that I think about the business. And Trent didn't have to. I mean, he came out to Denver when I was a new DM, and John, this was kind of nudged by you. You're always you're the godfather behind the scenes, but kind of seeing where the tides were going in our division. Trent came out my first summer, and we just had lunch together and just built a relationship. And he came to that meeting and said, I've got no skin in the game. I don't get anything from this. It's just I'm just here to serve. And that's how our relationship started, was just the generosity of his time. And that's what I really, it impacted me, is the connections and the people, your influences, your inner circle, and the people you're influenced by. But that was that started our coaching relationship. And very quickly, when I needed kind of a leader in Vector, we didn't have my division manager had just left at the time, and myself and Patty James were kind of new DMs, and Nick Matlack, the three of us were kind of just figuring it out. So Trent was along with Lloyd, kind of a surrogate DVM influence for us. And I wrote down a list of a handful of things that come to mind. I'm just going to rapid fire because there's so much over a decade plus that I've taken from Trent. And I think application wise of how I run my business, systems wise, working with people, challenging myself, critically thinking about the business. There's nobody that's been a bigger influence on my business than Trent, because he coached me at such an influential time in my business. I certainly wouldn't have had as quick of a rise, with results, or just the feeling and the impact of people if it weren't for Trent's coaching. I remember that's our second summer. It was the first big conference that I ran. We had 450 people showed up to Trinidad, Colorado, which is a tiny town. It's got a population of like 1,500 people, 2,000 people, and we rented out the town hall, which was just a big wooden barn. They didn't have AC, so we had to go out and buy a generator. The generator blew out because it was 100 degrees, and we were pumping it. So we had 450 Cutco reps just screaming top of their lungs. Everybody's dripping sweat. In this one, it looked like the scene from The Patriot, where they locked everybody in the barn and they set it on fire. Like that was what we had this conference in. And I had a speaker on the agenda. One of my assistant managers at the time, she was hot and nauseous and a little bit overwhelmed with the moment. And we had a recommendations talk on the agenda. And Trent was like, "I got it." And he just grabbed the mic and just got up and he just winged it. And it was one of the more impressive things that I've seen, not just because he could give a recommendations talk in like that, but just his confidence in handling the situation of taking something that could be so overwhelming and turning it into an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for impact. And he just got up there, and it was like, it's like your favorite song that has like one line that you just kept on repeating over and over. It's like the same chorus line. He just kept on screaming. He was walking up and down the aisle and he's like, "Just ask." all you got to do is ask. Just ask. And it was like a 25-minute recommendations talk that probably had, 52 words in the whole thing. And just ask was just repeated, over and over and over. He got a standing ovation. He's dripping sweat. And it showed his passion, his love for the business, what he's willing to do for people, and putting his heart out there, putting his ego out there. That was one of the light bulb, flashbulb memories that I have from Trent. A couple things that Trent taught me early on that same drive to the conference. He taught me how to have quick reflexes, but not strong reactions. And there was a time, and it took me a while to learn this, not reacting emotionally to situations, but having quick reflexes to handle a challenge. And it's always okay or permissible to have quick reflexes. It's not okay, not beneficial to have strong reactions. And that was impactful early on. The situation was somebody called me to say that they weren't coming to the conference, and I was about to blow them up. And Trent was driving with me to this conference, and he said two things. He said, one, who is this going to serve by you doing this? And then he also said, I'm driving in your car and I've got 3 kids at home. So you better not call this rep and have this conversation. You look at the road and you drive me to this conference. And he said, you're not going to be the one to sit in front of my kids and tell them why their dad's not here. So that it was so many important things that I learned even from that first trip down to that conference. You're welcome, Katie, for not texting and driving for the last 15 years, or thank you for your dad for that, I should say. Trent taught me how to think critically about my business. He was the first one to teach me how to really question everything in a positive way, with total appreciation for the foundation that it's built on, but always realizing that somebody decided this, people made this. So inherently, there's opportunity for growth and opportunity for improvement. Just doing things the way that it's always been done never sat well with me. And Trent gave me permission how to look at those things, how to take one challenge at a time and say, what's the one thing that's sticking with me right now? What's the one thing that's jabbing? How do you look at that from a positive way, question it in a positive way, create a solution to it that has mitigated risk? Because we were trying things, whether it was PDI programs or rep programs or training programs. And, the question was always, what is the potential risk? What's the potential downfall before you talk about all the positives? So we talked about mitigated risk. We talked about questioning things in a positive way, thinking critically. It taught me how to get in front of the right people. I cross-trained with Jake Bailey my first fall, and Trent's the one who set that up and brokered it and said, I think you should go see this guy, Jake. And I said, I went out there and, I could have had this ego because I came off of being the top new DM in the company for my first summer, but I knew that there was so much more to learn. So Trent taught me how to swallow my ego, always, realize that there's always someone else who knows a heck of a lot more than I do. So I learned to compare myself against people above me. I learned to compete at higher levels. And that's when I became friends with Kathy and Ryan Casey and Jeff Gamboa and Evan Keller and Dane Espigard and Justin Donald. And I started creating these relationships with people outside of my immediate circle. Trent taught me how to appreciate people. Why reps sell? Because they feel good. And that's all it comes down to, is making people feel good. John was just talking about it, the relationships and connections. He taught me about health and energy. When I was running out of steam, he asked me questions like, your energy comes from 3 things: how much you sleep, how much you exercise, and what your eating habits are. So what are you eating? How much are you sleeping? And what's your exercise routine? And when I was running out of steam and losing my energy at 4 o'clock, in the afternoon, and couldn't finish my day in the long summers, Trent taught me how to get that energy back. There's a million things that Trent taught me. Most importantly, he taught me how to bet on myself. Always, know that I intuitively will have the answers as long as I, dig in and commit to the process. So Trent, I appreciate all the influence you've had on me, and anybody who I've, given a message to or have come through my system has been indirectly influenced by you. So thank you for what you do and what you continue to do.
Thanks, Drew. I'd like to reflect back to the group some of the things that hit me as Drew was talking. And one of the thoughts is that there's not a single person here who can't come along beside someone today, tomorrow, this summer, and help them on their journey. You know, one of the things I've loved about our vector culture, I love that it's competitive, but I love that we don't keep score. You know, that there's just this feeling like if you reach out to someone, they will help you. And I think sometimes in our own space, we might not feel like, you know, we have a lot to offer. Maybe, you know, we might not consider that while we're being mentored, we should be mentoring others. You know, we're up to our own goals and objectives and things we want to accomplish. But I think if you really dig into the stories of people, and one of the reasons I want to dig a little bit into Drew's story is because there might be a perception that Drew was just always the Drew we see now, you know, the picture of the 79 silver cups on the wall. Well, that all started somewhere, you know, that started somewhere with someone coming alongside. And I wonder who we're going to meet this summer. You know, maybe it's the customer that you're going to meet this summer that becomes your best customer of all time, because of the massive intention to add value. And I think that we're really going to need each other in the years ahead. And it's this, you know, I think in the years ahead, it's not about, you know, 1 or 2 or 10 great leaders. It's about a community that really lifts each other up and wants to lead together. And I think when you look around this call, if you were to scroll through the screen, if you could see what I see, which is so many people that I love who have a heart for growth and for helping people. You know, Drew's story could be your story, and Trent's story of helping Drew could be your story. And I think that's where this starts to really count. That's where this starts to really mean something, is not the stories that are being told today, but the stories that are inspired from a day like today. And so, you know, I think one of the best things about our culture is we have a lot of cool stories. You all have a story about the person who stood behind you at that awesome moment, maybe when you were doing something great, but maybe the person who stood with you at your lowest moment. And I think that one of the reasons people stay here, and one of the reasons people leave and come back, and leave and come back. And, you know, we have people that have left and come back 5 times. And I think that's awesome that that's a part of our culture. We have some people that just stay. Gino, thank you. And, you know, we have some people stay and you know, there's never a thought of leaving. But I think what I've found is that when people leave and come back, they come back stronger. They come back more determined to pay back the gift of, you know, what this has been. And so, you know, in sharing this, I want to also reflect back on the favorite things list. What's beautiful about that exercise is that you're now all qualified to teach it. You know, so many of these leadership development concepts are things that, you know, you can take to your dinner table. You could take to your parents. You can take to your family members. That it's not just about what we're doing here in Vector. I really believe that just like we see the benefit of Cutco out there in the world, the joy that brings to millions of families, these concepts and these ideas are things that make the world a way better place to be in. You know, Trent shared with me at one point that he really considered going into the ministry. And if you know Trent, he's a person, as his faith is a critical part of like who he is at his core. And one of the things that was either said to him or he reflected on is the statement that, hey, many people in this Vector community, in this environment, they're people that might never darken the door of a church. They might never show up in church, but in some way, by just being who Trent is, he's able to just kind of, without having to preach to people, just live his values here. And I think what's beautiful, regardless of whatever your background, your religion, whoever you are, there's a place where you can be who you are. And, that favorite things teaching is a great way to get to know a customer, get to know a new rep, get to know a key staff member. These are things that you can apply. And so, there's kind of hopefully a real purpose behind the stories and the testimonials. And I feel like that's what I would love people to connect with today. How are you going to use this? What are you going to do with it? Where are you going to take this? Powerful things. Angie, I know you've been here a while, and I know you also shared with me, you've shared over the years many thoughts. You've been an inspiration to many people in our business. I would say that there are a lot of people who have a story about you showing up for them at a powerful time. I personally have one that I'll treasure for the rest of my life, of the day you and Warren showed up for me, and I'll never forget it. I'm not going to tell the story. I'm happy to tell it at some point, but what I know about you and so many others of this call is showing up. I'd love for you to reflect a little bit about your journey and growth as a leader, the influence that and relationship with Trent, and just maybe share some of the things you'd love to share with the group. I know there are a lot of people that love to hear from you today.
Well, thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. Joe talked a little bit about my relationship with with Trent, and the influence that he's had on me. It is really unique to think about our relationship, that, I started as a sales rep and Trent was the pilot sales manager in that office. And, he taught me a lot. He was the guy that, if you ever saw somebody come into your physical training class when we used to have it, and you were excited to introduce them to the group, and then you took a look at them and you realized they weren't in a great space to be introduced to the group. And I would get ushered to a side room where Trent would grab me and I would start crying, and I'd say, they canceled again. And Trent would pick me up and go, they wouldn't have said yes if you weren't so great. And he would pick me up and send me back on my way. And, I'd go after it again. And, he was a big influence to me my first summer. And then we went into Leadership Academy together. He was a leader there that I really looked up to for a lot of guidance. And then he left and I continued, and then graduated. And then we had an opportunity to be district managers at the same time in Canada together, and in different places. And then we were DVCs at the same time. Trent, quite often we say to each other, I say he's my brother from another mother. And he has become somebody that, you always have your person. Trent was still is, but he was my person. He was the guy that, and you had a tough day at work, you could call that person and you could just vent, and you knew they weren't going to think you were going to quit, or they were there to hold space. Right. So I could call Trent, he'd hold space, I'd get it off my chest, and then he'd lift me up, or he'd just be there. Right. He didn't have to fix it. He just was there. And then I provided that for him. He knew he could call me and be the space to kind of just get that out. And, and then we would lift each other up. I think that when I think of Trent, I wrote down a lot of things. A lot of them come up already. I just listened to a compilation from one of my favorite podcasts, Rich Roll, and he did a compilation on mindset, of the best speakers on mindset. And one of the things that came up a lot was basically actions drive feelings. And that's the decision train. I remember Trent teaching that to us at a summer kickoff at a Canadian National Management Conference. I remember going to probably my first roundtable, I think, with Trent at Mike Lancelot's house. I remember me flying into Philly and Trent going, let's go in a day early. And we went to an Eagles game. We didn't have tickets. We just found a way. It was, I just think about doing experiences with Trent that we just found a way, right? And first time for me to see the Rocky Steps and then go to Mike's house was great. I think about whitewater rafting that we do in Canada in the summer, and Trent being someone who would always say, I will come, I will influence your team. And we've had lots of great experiences with him, and people always remember Trent. Seeing the Tragically Hip on their final tour concert and being able to share that with Trent. I think of Leadership Development Day in Philly, and the gift that I was given to not just be a part of it, but to bring, some key DMs with me to Philly and have Trent pour into us, and really help them see outside of themselves of what they can be as a leader. I think that Trent continues to work on himself, which allows those that he influences the opportunity, to make mistakes. And because he's so vocal about the mistakes he makes, I think it gives people permission, right, to know they don't have to be perfect, and that they can continue to be a work in progress, and that we're just looking to be better, a little bit better every day, right? Trent has helped, I believe, put a focus on key areas of our business by providing these master classes and giving us a chance to do deep dives where sometimes we don't get that deep dive. And he's really been, the leader to bring out the best in so many great people in our company. And when you think about this masterclass series in combination with the Changing Lives podcast, there's always a resource, an idea, a solution, something that can help someone move forward to. There's never not enough places to go to find an answer or a person to be able to help you. And I think that when I, think about these classes and podcasts, I think about what Brad said, that he's like, Jay Brad, when he's like, where our natural tendency is to go to this place of mediocrity or to take the path of least resistance. And by providing and shining the light on people that have succeeded, are succeeding, it shifts your energy, it shifts your perspective, it helps you to think bigger than what you were thinking. And we're always constantly having to be responsible for our own growth. And I think that Trent being passionate about providing a space and an opportunity to continue moving that forward is really valuable. And, just yesterday, I had a chance to be on a call with Trent and a group of DVMs. And one of the things that we said, and this kind of plays on what John has been saying here, is that what a gift that we've been given in our business, that we get an opportunity to positively influence and impact the young group of young adults. Right now, we influence a lot of people, but really the privilege that we get and the passion in the team that we have right now that want to positively influence the next generation. That's it's a lot of responsibility, but it's also really exciting to know that we have an opportunity to do that, and that we can just continue to get better and better in what we do. And the last thing that I'll share is there was a quote that I heard on the weekend, and it makes me think a lot about when Trent said time hop and pictures. And I just went through pictures and I'm like, and the quote was that memories are often more impactful than the actual experience. The actual experience creates the memory. But when you think about, for me, when I look at pictures and I think back to moments and times with people, in this business, Trent's been in a lot of those, many of them. But we all have the opportunity to create these memories that can forever impact and change the way we continue to impact people in the future. So thank you to John. Thank you to Trent for continuing to show up and to serve and really just wanting to make this the best place that we can make it and have each of us become, the best versions of ourselves. So thank you.
Thanks, Ange. Really appreciate it. TB, I would love you to take a little bit of time. I have a couple questions for you that I prepared, and maybe others will have, but I'd love to hit you with a couple of those if you're good. And I know that if people need a break, they'll take it. We're recording this, so I'm going to keep it rolling, and I don't need a break. And but anybody's welcome to take one. So feel free to do that. Maybe not the best leadership decision of all time, but that's what we're going to do. Trent, what advice would you give to someone in terms of their self-care, in terms of, Drew touched on a few of these things. And the spirit of this question is around the philosophy of, if we're not in a great place, it's hard to care for and lead and support others. So I would just love, what are some of the things you've loved learning? What are some of the things that you love teaching? What are the things you've observed in great leaders in and out of our business? but as it relates to just taking really good care of yourself, what are the, what's the Mount Rushmore of points around this? I'd love you to share a little bit of that, because as we go into a season where we're constantly lifting people up and encouraging people with customers every day, I'd just love to hear some of your thoughts about self-care.
Love the question. And I'm just trying to pull myself together after, Drew, Angie, all y'all sharing here. Feels a little underhanded, like John Kane's been planning some of this. But here's the thinking is, Angie struck on one thing that I want to bring home here, because in terms of health, like self-care, it's the idea of like pour into yourself so you can pour into others. If you're not pouring into yourself, you're not gonna have anything left to bring to others. So make sure you're taking care of yourself, and not like an indulgent, I'm just worshiping myself type way. I'm actually saying, get yourself the things that you need to be able to serve others well. Angie hit on one that was a key thing for me. And I thought this is a really great thing when we were connecting like that. And I believe it more now at 48. And I've known Angie for 28 years. It's amazing. Having your person. And if you don't have your Vector person, you need one. And I have had other people outside of Vector that have been my person too. Just, you've got to have your person. And I'm suggesting even beyond like your BFF, your significant other, I would say. So Angie and I, and what a great gift to be able to go to each other's weddings, and our spouses love hanging out. And Spain would make my list as well, Angie, hanging out just a random beer garden in Spain. But hanging out with Warren and Christy, our spouses, they knew that if I was driving home, it would be better for me to talk to Angie and be like, I want to fire everyone. I'd be like, Angie, I'm going to kill him. She's like, I know, I know. You didn't, right? No, I didn't. I'm calling you instead. She'd be like, okay, you're going to be fine, right? You're going to be all right. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I know. But what about this? And she'll start asking great questions, and she would pull me back. And to have that person that I could process stuff with, I found that if I was just going home and giving Christy the full Vector blast, that wasn't always healthy. Christy would I'd share a story about my pilot manager, and she would store those little stories, and she'd be like, Donald's the worst. I'm like, no, we're good now. We worked through that. She's like, oh, I thought, no, he's fine. He's good. If I could vent it out with Angie a little bit, by the time I got home, I could still be transparent and even disclosing truth with my wife, but how I felt about it was already different. So Christy wasn't getting the full brunt of my frustration when I came back with a weak sales report or something. So just helping me frame that in, having a safe person that allows you to vent, but doesn't let you stay there. Somebody that eventually pulls you back. And I would say somebody that you really respect, like I respect Angie still. And I could still call Angie if I'm like, oh man, I'm working through this SLC agenda. It's killing me. It's like, I know, but walk me through what you got. So Angie's always did a great job being able to help me pause and pivot. So I'd suggest that you've get your Vector person. Number 2, celebrate the pause and the pivot. The pause and the pivot. You find yourself in a bad spot, pause and go, okay, what am I feeling? I don't have a better way to explain how to do it other than in a journal, because it gets you linear and it gets you out of your brain, which might be ruminating. You might be stuck in a loop. Just to pause and go, what am I feeling? What's real here? Very often when I write it down, I'll look at that and go, it's true that I feel that. Also, that's so not true. Everything I'm feeling feels very true. It's also, as I look at it, this is not true. My daughter doesn't hate me. Right? I'm like, so let me process this in real time. So what I'm encouraging you to do, these first 2 have a lot to do with not just relationships, but also like the relationship with self, like that inner game. How am I doing? Because a lot of the pain that we're feeling, that's kind of like it's a blinker light on the dash. And you don't have to stop everything, but I wouldn't let that check engine light go for a month. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to pull over immediately, but don't give it a 4 weeks before you check in what's going on there. If I feel that type of pain pressure, what's happening? What could I do? What do I need to do? Or do I just need to change how I feel about it? So check in with self. That's the pause and the pivot. And we could spend 3 hours on the pause and the pivot. I highly recommend, and Drew referenced this earlier, when it comes to coaching, I believe everybody on this call already knows the things that you need to do to feel better. but have you paused and kind of got quiet and sorted out what they are? So for Drew, when we were talking about, let's say, nutrition, I said, let's talk about nutrition for a second. I'm not talking about a diet. I'm saying, what's something that you're eating right now that's hurting you? He's, not Drew's answer, but the answer very often is like, dude, I'm eating fast food, or I'm not eating all day. And when I do go to eat, it's bad because by the time I get that late in the day, now my body's craving fill in the blank. And I indulge and I eat that thing and now I feel terrible. So making new choices with your nutrition. For some of you, I know for me, I was 23 and I thought that a banana and a coffee was a good breakfast. I was like, no, you know what? If I just ate oatmeal, that would upgrade. So once upon a time, I moved the needle 1 point by just having oatmeal and I didn't like it, but food is fuel, and I would choke down oatmeal before my day started. And that was helpful for me. I've talked to people where they'll just cut out fast food. They're like, you know what? If I just cut out the fast food, that would be a move for me. So some of your moves might be drastic. Some people are like, you know what? I'm just going to cut out soda. I'll encourage you to consider what the move is. All of us have a bit of a sense. If we ask the following questions, what's something I'm currently doing I need to stop? What's something I'm not doing that I need to start? And what's something I'm doing well that I should continue doing? This is what we call start, stop, continue. And this was in the request a little bit earlier. Start, stop, continue is a question that raises awareness, and it's an invitation for you to consider what you need. And I'm applying it specifically here to what do I need for myself for self-care, although you can imagine you can apply this in so many different areas. I could apply this with my wife. We can go on a date night and say, all right, hey, it's been a while since we checked in. What's something that we're doing we need to stop doing? What's something that we're not doing that we need to start? And what's something that's going well that we should make sure we either double down or make sure we keep doing? Start, stop, continue functions well with relationships to raise awareness and gives us a feedback loop so we can, again, double down or celebrate and or consider other things that we either need to start doing or maybe we used to do and we've stopped. But it's also a great thing for me to ask when it comes to, again, the nutrition thing. Or how about the sleep? I just got one of these blue blocks things that go around my eyes. It's like a sleep mask and it blocks out all light. And it is unbelievable. Don't take my word for it. I don't make any money if you go buy one at blueblocks.com. Go get one and just see if blocking out all the light in your room, there's all these plugs that in my room at least have these LED lights. So if I'm charging my phone or the Apple TV doesn't get turned off and all of a sudden all these lights are in my room. And if I can block all that, I get a better quality sleep. What improves your sleep just a little bit? Is it a sleep routine? Instead of maybe staring at the phone, we decide to read a book. I don't know about you. If I was to read a book right now, it'll put me to sleep. I don't know why that's a thing, but for me, it tends to be a thing. So if I'm reading a book late at night, as opposed to staring at the blue light, I've got a better shot of getting a good night's sleep tonight. Many of us know drinking alcohol within 4 hours of sleep ruins your REM sleep. It hurts our REM sleep. I'm not saying that I'll never have a beer before I'm going to play hockey tonight. I'll probably have a beer after the game. But I know that's going to cost my REM sleep. I better not do that 7 nights this week because I want my REM sleep to refresh me and make me feel good. I'm encouraging you to consider what are things that you know you could do with your sleep, what are things you know you could do with your nutrition, and finally, Drew just said exercise. Now, you don't have to be an Ironman like Drew or Angie. I dipped my toe in that water. I've enjoyed a half Ironman, but I don't do them now, but I do other things to stay in shape. Once upon a time, I thought, boy, just getting outside and feeling some vitamin D on my skin would be a good move for my health. Once upon a time, if I just start taking some supplements, if there's a deficiency in what's in my food, if I just take in some extra vitamin D, for example, I might feel better. What are some things that I could do to close the gap with my nutrition? What are some things I can do with regards to my sleep? What are some things I can do with an exercise? Simple walk could be a thing. Walking the dog might be a thing for you. At one point, I decided I'm going to start playing hockey. That was a great decision. I wish I'd considered that when I was 21. I wish I did it at 25. But I'm glad I didn't let the fact that I was 39 stop me from starting it. So I'll encourage you to consider what is it physically or in terms of exercise that you'd like to do. The self-care things, folks, these are areas, sleep, nutrition, exercise, that allow us to play offense when it comes to our personal energy and how we're feeling. So much of how we're feeling is determined by these three things. The fourth thing I added is the bonus is the relationships piece. Having robust relationships, your person, somebody that can pull you back. those four things I would say in total have a tremendous impact on how you're feeling and how you're doing. Let me take it a little bit further. Here's a little bit advanced and bonus. For some of us, again, that wrestle against gravity, where your natural resting place is more the valley than it is on the mountaintop. You need to do these things. So if you're sitting there going, boy, it'd be really nice to have robust relationships or have that person, or it'd be really nice to get 7 hours of sleep a night, or it'd be really nice to have discipline with my nutrition. I'm suggesting, folks, hear me right. If you do all those things, you might still wrestle, but I've got to think that it's important for us to grab every single percentage point that we can from the things that we do control. So for these things, let's take advantage so that we're giving ourselves a chance of feeling good so that we can pour into other people. As much as I said, hey, feelings are the most important thing, we are certainly driven by our emotions much of the time. So let's influence them as best we can. Good mental hygiene with the journaling, taking care of ourselves physically, and see if we can't give ourselves a shot. Johnny Kane.
Thanks, TB.
What did I miss from the list there?
Well, don't worry, I got it. I want to reflect back to something Wes shared earlier that I'd love you to take a little time on. I know in a leadership development day, this is a 3-hour workshop that we walk people through.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great thing to emerge for anyone, whether you're considering your customer base, your family relationships, your business relationships. I know there's a lot of lenses you can go here, but could you take a few minutes here, take some time, and can you share your experience teaching on relationships? How you evaluate them, what you do, maybe give the cliff notes, and maybe encourage someone to listen to the deeper tracks that are out there if they haven't. But I think if you were to give the crash course, kind of referencing some of the highlights, I'd love you to spend time. And I'm going to set this up with something that Albert shared with me. There was a season where I was very uncertain about something I was going to be doing. It was going to be new for me. And I wasn't sure how to do the work, and I wasn't sure I was going to enjoy the work. It was all new. And I felt overwhelmed and I felt scared. And I went to Al and I said, I'm not sure this is going to be a good thing. And he said, look, just focus on relationships. It's the key to being good at the job and the key to enjoying the work. And Trent, what's been highlighted so many times today, and I think if you look at the people, if you know the people, I'm looking at Kareem right now, and I don't see Kareem every day. In fact, I really miss seeing Kareem and being with Kareem, because anytime I've been around Kareem, I feel awesome. He's just got such a bright light. He brings joy. He brings music. He shares. He gives. Philly B. Wow, that's
two American treasures for sure.
Yeah, and again, thinking about people on my own team, you heard from Loretta earlier, or Shelby, and there's just so many people. Helen Brown, when Helen Brown and I get together and have lunch, it's like you remember like why you still want to be here. And I think about there's so many great stories, and so I think that we get so focused on the thing that we're trying to do or figured out in the business, but I think the relationship piece gets lost or buried or forgotten. Can you please take some time and share some of that? Because for me, I've watched you teach it so many times, and each time I do it, it helps me. And I just think it could be a gift as part of today. So take some time as we're in the final stretch here. I don't want to miss that piece today.
Yeah. I think it always works best, Johnny, instead of talking about it, is us doing it. So that'll be the invitation in just a moment. And this speaks to our culture here. What you said about Kareem, Phil, and I see Jake Kuhn here, and Amy, and Chris Hammond, Johnny St. Pierre. We begin to love those we work with. And not only is that okay, we need to celebrate that, because it is not like that in every company. And many of you, like me, I was 19 when I started here. This is all I've ever known. I've left twice. So I'm on that. I'm one of the vector zombies as well. Glad to be back. Thank you for having me back. Also, I've seen that it's not like this everywhere. That's what I'm getting at. Also, for us to celebrate how much we love the people we work with, what an awesome thing. and to actually gift ourselves more time with those people. I'm hoping that's one of your takeaways today, is that I love the people I work with and I can't wait to work with them more. If word gets out, friends, that this is the place where you can learn, grow, and dream, and I'm stealing that from Team Canada, this will be the place people want to work. And as a company, again, we're talking about relationships in a second here, but this is a company that's invested over $1 million. If I was to do the math, it might be over $2 million in terms of budget, salaries, people, flights, all the above, not even including the SLC, which is a separate line item, that the company's invested millions of dollars, without hyperbole, into leadership development, because they know that the relationships are the main thing. They want our customers to have an exceptional experience. Well, how do you do that? You make sure that the people working for you are having an exceptional experience. If our cups are running over, our hearts are full, eyes are bright, we're going to make sure that our customers are feeling the same, whether your customers are reps or end users. So a couple thoughts. I'm going to invite you to take a moment to draw in your journal. And here's how I'll do it. A fresh sheet is good. I just started a sheet after taking some notes on Angie there. So I'm going to take some notes. And in the middle of my page, I'm going to write me. Draw a little circle. You could do a square. I don't drive very great circles, right? So I've got me in the middle of my page. Give yourself some room, because you're going to write down some initials around this. I've been making this list, and this is called Who's at the Front Row of Your Life? Homage and honor to John Vroman. I think this came out of a conversation that John Kane and John Vroman were having together about, hey, let's take stock of if you have only 8 seats for that front row of your life, who are we giving them to? Who would it be? So I'm going to take a minute here to write some, and you can write initials. Keep in mind, they don't ever have to see it. They could. But I don't want guilt to factor in here. So you get to write down who are the top 8 people that you would give to the front row of your life. And as you're writing, it's so fun. It's not uncommon for it to get hard as you get up around 6 or 7. It gets tricky when you start running out of seats, doesn't it? Just 8. There's nothing magical about the number 8, by the way. The point is, whatever our cutoff is, at some point it gets hard, because we've got to start making decisions on our time. We don't have unlimited time. The one resource we don't have an unlimited supply of. All right, once you've got your 8, you can draw a circle around that or a box around that. And good news, if somebody got left out of your top 8, we're going to put them in the next group of 16. So we'll have a total of 24, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to write out the initials for another 16 people who's in the second row, which, man, not everybody can be in the first, but man, the second row is pretty hot. That's still pretty great. So who else is in the front row of your life? I've got one brother that didn't make the first round. He's in. Great.
Which brother, Trent?
I can't tell you that. Come on, it's being recorded. I mean, one of Katie's uncles here. It's so fun.
I'm sorry.
Right on Front Street. All right. Which brother? Oh, it's fun. Okay.
I might need to resign my role as facilitator. Might be.
You're crushing it. A little rusty, but I'd say it's been going pretty great. I think everybody's doing pretty good. That's great. Now, if you're going through your top 16, sometimes pressure hits. Very often your favorites on your phone should indicate people who are probably top 24 for you. Not necessarily. Oh, good. But I forgot one that I really should have added earlier. also occasionally you find somebody like somebody's in my favorites. They've never made my list that for the first time today. And I've done dozens of these making the list today. Johnny, somebody that used to be on the suspects list. It's converted. Started watering another grass, another lawn. Mm-hmm. Ooh, first time for that one too. Think back to some old school friends that maybe you haven't seen for a while. Just give you another minute or two to continue. So if you're like me, you're putting 4 sets of 4 initials on each side of the box. So you've got a total of 24-ish. And this doesn't have to be the career lifetime list. This is just your March 29th, 2022 list. It'll change the next time you do it a little bit. Okay. Now you might not be done. I'll give you a chance to continue that later if you haven't got it completed here. Maybe if you wave hands, I'll move to gallery so I can see more people here. Throw some hands up if that was relatively easy for you. No problem. I got lots of people I love and I'm aware of it. It's hard to actually figure out who doesn't make the list. Some of you waving hands, give me the jazz hands. All right, Naomi. All right, Bolander, Monroe. All right. Maybe throw hands up, jazz hands, if you're like, that was hard. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. It's okay. Sometimes this emerges ideas, thoughts, things that are tricky for us, right? For those of you that were finding it tough or tricky, we invite you, would you take a moment and maybe drop kind of why? Can you identify what was tough there? What was hard about that? You could drop that in the chat or maybe raise a hand. If we get a chance, we might bring you up live here. If you found it easy, what was easy or what was great with it? In other words, what are some of the things that you're taking away? What's emerging for you as we start to take stock of who's in the front row of your life? Mr. Monroe, I'm going to invite you. I'll add a spotlight here. I got you muted though for some reason. There we go.
Gosh, I'm a train wreck today on my tech.
I love you.
Literally, we've been talking about this for what, 15 years? This exercise is like this. And it was at SLC in St. Louis in 2019 where we did it. And I think it was probably the hardest time of my life to actually get 8 people on the right. Like it was all in aspirational relationships. And this was the first time that I've done it in the last 15 years where it was actually easy. And I'm so wildly encouraged by that.
Good for you, man. Thanks for sharing that. That's encouraging. That's good. We have some more thoughts emerging here. Mr. Monroe says, if you want to talk through some tech stuff, I can make myself available. John Fiacco. That is sarcasm, in case you don't know John Fiacco. It's beautiful. Johnny St. Pierre, that is indeed one of my takeaways. Haha, I wrote that down. I'm not sure what that one is. Maybe that he's one of my favorite people. I don't know.
That was older.
Older time.
No, I sent that in the chat a long time ago.
All righty. Other thoughts that are emerging for you, you can either raise a hand or drop something in the chat there. What's emerging for you as you take stock of some of your relationships? John Kane.
One of my favorite things to consider in this process is, do the people know that they're on your list? Would people know? Would they know that if you were to do this, and what would it feel like if they found out? And then it's also fun to think about, like, whose list might you show up on and not know? And, we think about this from, you can take this point of it's all about you and your list, but I think as we expand into life beyond this call, it's possible that there's someone you met 10 years ago and you did something that was significant for them that may have just you been doing whatever it is you do, and you might be on that list. And it's also interesting to think about, like, if you're not, hey, what could be different moving forward? So, sometimes this exercise is a little painful because we might have the realization that we've been investing in things in life, whatever they are, but it might not be it might not be something that shows up here. And I'll just share a personal story around this that I love to share. And some of you have heard it before, and that's okay. But in 2008, there was the experience of the markets crashing. So many of you, Chris Hammond, I know you remember this, and others have been here. The markets crashed on a Monday. And if you were investing at a certain point, you had the feeling like your investments were a nightmare. It was really bad. And it was like the first time I ever experienced something where it felt like what people might have been feeling in the Great Depression. It was kind of compared to that. Well, that was on a Monday. And on a Thursday, I was with Kyle Smith from the Central Region, and I got a call that my youngest brother had died of a drug overdose. And it was a powerful moment in that I was completely overwhelmed, blown away, devastated. I certainly wasn't thinking about my financial portfolio at that time. And I had the experience with my parents where they didn't want any Vector people to come to the funeral. It was such a tragic time. And a few days later, Gino will remember this because he was there. Al DiLeonardo invited me to his home. He said, could you just come over to the house? And when I got there were about 100, 150 Vector people who had either flown in or driven in. And it was just something personal Al did to help remember my brother, because at that point, I really hadn't grieved him with people that I love. And a lot of people that I love are here. And I remember having the realization and the thought that my investments were just fine. And it was sad that that's what it took for me to really take stock of all the relationships that had been built and cultivated from this experience here, to be able to literally see people that would show up for you or, share love. And, it really got me thinking about, how that's one of the greatest gifts of this is we have all these great people we've met and known, and some of them aren't here anymore. They're out doing other things. They're on Dan's podcast, or maybe they'll never make the podcast, but we really leave a relationship footprint in the hearts and minds of many people that doesn't show up in a silver cup race or a CPO column. And we can't always measure the value that we're creating with the reports that we have. But I know in my own life, when I think about this work and this time here, what will mean the most to me is that piece of this. And why I love your work, Trent, is because, it was a while before I had ever really thought much about that again. But when you started doing this, it got me being a lot more intentional about calling my mom or calling a family member or sharing appreciation or making time for people. And it's difficult. You have a family, you have a busy life. And, I didn't even know that the random call of awesome is such a powerful thing because it's so simple. It's so easy to do. It doesn't take long. And so, it's why I love this part of the work, because I think Though a lot of things I won't remember about all the things that we did here, but we'll remember each other and how we've shown up for each other. And I think wherever you are in your relationship journey, it's not too late to upgrade that list and to upgrade your relationship to others and theirs to you. And that, to me, you know, if every key person meeting, if every time we got together, we all did this, I just think it's a reminder of like why we're really doing this. So I'm grateful that you keep playing this song over and over and over and over again, because it does not get old for me. So it's one of my favorite things that you do.
Thanks, Johnny, for sharing and for having the courage to be vulnerable on that level and share that beautiful story. I know that it's something that's it's impacted me, not just when I heard it the first time, but even today. Again, it means more now. I think I'm pronouncing it right when I say Vatzel. Was talking about, hey, I don't feel as close to the people as I want to on this list. Like I just finished college or just finished school, and I used to get a lot of time with them, and now I don't. It's tough to get to know people and develop deeper relationships. And this is one of the reasons why this is an exercise that we will continue to do at Vector. Because a lot of us, we get out of college and it was easy because we had access. We had lots of discretionary time with our friends. And to build any relationship requires quality and quantity time. And we had that in bushels back in college. It is very common for us to get out of college and for those relationships, because it's not organic, it's not easy. We're not just seeing them on every Thursday night or when we go home, for those relationships to wane or even dry out a little bit. And it's not just us. This is a world challenge, not just a Vector challenge, but because so many of us are coming out of college situations and or out of high school and straight to here, this is tricky. My encouragement to you, that's all, is both John, myself, others that have done this for years. We've noticed in certain cases, people that they're not. My dad has sometimes been on the inside circle. Sometimes he's been on the outside. And I haven't felt great about the times he's on the outside. Instead of feeling guilty about it, which is that's where my mind goes. My heart goes, I should feel bad about that. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can't influence this. I want to see if I can't bring him back in. If I water this lawn, could we get it green again? And could I, influence that at all? And the encouragement is, this has made me more intentional with the people that I need to be more intentional with. So those that deserve to be in the front row, I've told all of them at one point or another. Even, I would say, my youngest daughter, who, when I started doing this, she'd have been 5, Rebecca. I do this exercise where I write down the most important people in my life. She's 5. I said, you are always the 4th name that I write down. She says, really? It blew her away. Even at 5, she knew. Now, it's one thing to know it. It's another thing to hear it. For me to tell my dad, hey, Dad, I made a list. There's been times where you and I have not been so great. You're on the outside. He's like, I know. I said, Dad, I'm really grateful for the fact we talk every Friday now. We talk on the phone every Friday when I've done work or going home, or if I had the day off, I just call him. And if I don't call him, he calls me. It was not always like that. But many of us in Vector are the straw that stirs the drink. We are the initiators in our communities. And by you showing up more intentionally with a couple extra random texts of awesome or random calls, or not so random, it's scheduled. There's a few ways that you could hack into those relationships and bring more life and bring more energy. I also celebrate the crap out of one person I don't share any DNA with. That cracks that top 8. It's amazing. Again, one of my brothers doesn't make it because I got 2 brothers. I got 3 children and my wife. I throw my dad on, all of a sudden I'm like, ugh. And I celebrate the fact that I've got somebody that I do not share DNA with on that top 8. I cherish that relationship so much. And we fight to get time. And we fight to have regular, recurring time because it's important. It's important to protect that time. Other people, we haven't taken the time now, but later, here's what you want to do. Here's a gift for later. The exercise is, who could be in my top 24 that's not? Who do I like? Who am I not currently connected with that I would like to go deeper with? Who if I were to make like a vector version of this, would be the first name I write down there. Who would be my person? We refer back to Angie and me. Because Angie's made, what I also love is the fact when I make the vector list and the personal list, there's a lot of overlap. I celebrate that. I remember feeling a little self-conscious about that in my 20s, but I celebrate that now, being here for 29 years. Part of the reason I'm still here is I love working with the people that I love, and I'm going to keep doing it. But I'm also open to getting to know more people and loving them too, and seeing, could Johnny St. Pierre be on this list at some point? I saw Jeff Gamboa, I think, just came on here. When I started doing these, Jeff Gamboa wasn't in my personal top 24. He is a dear friend now that I celebrate easily. And I don't have to look at my phone to remember that Gamboa is one of my people, one of my favorites. Also, I've got people that I've not seen since I graduated from high school, or if I see them, it's every 5 years. And it's hard to maintain relationships. And I call them if it's their birthday for sure. And I don't even mind scheduling an unbirthday call 6 months out. Or if something pops up on the time hop, sending them a picture. And at 48 now, I've got a little more discretionary time, a little more discretionary income. One of my friends just moved to the east coast of Canada, and I'm going to go to Nova Scotia to visit Darcy Stadel. He's one of my favorites. Doesn't know a lot of people out there. He could probably use a visit from a buddy. And would that be good for my soul? The answer is, man, can't wait. Can't wait. Some people, I'm like, I think this is a great person. I can't wait to get to know them some more. I'm going to start investing time with them. And you heard Drew refer to that. Many times for me, it has been a choice. I'm going to spend more time with them and see where this goes. One of the guys I added, and I'm going to go to Naomi in just a moment. One of the guys I added here, we used to conflict. We were both serving at the same space at church. And this guy literally said one meeting, he goes, I absolutely disagree with everything you just said. And it was like, it was so crazy that somebody would even speak like that. I'm like, wow, now he's really passionate about what he does. And his ideas were wrong. It was just, I'm like, well, I could probably phrase that differently. I'm like, I need to get to know him because he's a big banger in this space. And so am I. We better be friends. And so we started spending more time together. He likes golfing. I'm like, I can get into golf again. This is great. He made my top list. I wrote him down 4th on my second circle because he is a cherished relationship at this point. Just getting some time with him. If you sit down with somebody you don't see eye to eye with and you break some bread with them, you might flip them from being a mortal enemy, a nemesis, to maybe a BFF. Who knows? Even people in the business, people I don't know that I'd like to get to know. It's always been really good. Encourage you. All right, I'll jump off the soapbox here. Friends, if you had other thoughts so that we did not get to, hit them again in the post, the chat, or go ahead and put something that you haven't thought, even if it is resonating with you, but you haven't written it down yet. Naomi had a thought here. Can I add you? And you can unmute. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I don't have a terrible amount to share that hasn't already been said, but I really liked doing this exercise just because it was a really great way to clarify the relationships that I have and organize the people that are important to me. I think a common theme is just seeing that some of the people that I have the closest relationships with is not necessarily who I spend the most time with. The people who I respect most and whose opinion I want to hear the most is not necessarily the people that I spend the most time with. So clarifying this and then being intentional about how I'm organizing my time outside of work, better helps.
Mm-hmm.
And then just one thought that I have been doing, and I didn't even realize that this is what I was doing, but some inspiration from Jesse Itzler back in SLC when he had talked about having the big calendar. I just made one on Google Sheets because I was able to see it better. And whenever I put big work events and things like that, so I know when something's coming up. But anytime that I do something with a friend, that I just have a really good time doing it. Even just if I remembered, this morning, I remembered that I saw them last week. I highlight it on my calendar in my favorite color and I write what I did, because as much as I aspire to journal regularly, because I think that's something that's really healthy, I don't always remember to do it. I get caught up in things and I'm working up to that. But this is as a form of quote unquote micro journaling, just remembering days that I had that were really good. It's really good to look back. And then even looking back at February, I only had pink is my favorite color. I only had 2 pink events in February. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt terrible by the end of February. And so then in March so far, I've had a bunch more of those, and I just made a point, even if it was only like an hour that I had a call with a friend that I hadn't seen in a while, it made the difference. And then being able to, if I'm having a bad day, look back and be like, oh, these are some really great days over the past month, or these are some exciting things that I have coming up, without taking a lot of effort. And because it's Google Sheets, I can see it anytime or update it anywhere. And that's just a practice that I've used that's helped. And it ended up being like, I mark it when I'm with those 8 people. So that was cool to see.
That is so great. Thanks for sharing, Naomi. That is a high recommend. And it's really high level that you're doing. You're raising your awareness. And when you're becoming aware, you're adjusting, you're self-regulating, if you will. And I love the fact that you're documenting it any way you can do it digitally in your journal. Document it so you can celebrate it, right? Because you're walking out what we were talking about earlier, which is become aware, celebrate the wins. Hey, I don't feel so good. Oh, wait, hold on. I got lots of pink here. I also love the fact that you didn't bury yourself with guilt, right? Because we're always a work in progress. Oh, not a lot of pink in February. And what'd you do? More pink in March. And I can assure you, if you keep working at this, like you said, oh, I can't get together for breakfast, but at least a call. Boy, those matter. And you start stacking those up on each other. Now all of a sudden you've got these robust friendships. Not because you lucked into it, but because you chose to invest into them. You chose to water the lawn and look, the lawn is green, right? Good for you. This is really high level stuff that you're doing. I'm really encouraged by you sharing. Thank you for doing that. This is really fun. John, Kane, thoughts? I know this is some things that we've done before.
Yeah, I really wanted to invite Gino into our conversation today, if he's willing to share. And I think for those of you who don't know Gino Liacotti, you should know this story. You know, our history as a company, many of the things we've done to bring things forward is we get groups of people together and talk about ideas. That's true in the management part of the business and on in the journey of the sales rep. And Gino embodies so many core values and qualities as a human being. To know him, you love him. And Gino, what year are you celebrating selling Cutco right now? What year are you celebrating now? I don't know if you're muted. I don't know if we can unmute you. We don't hear you yet, Gino. I don't know if there's a way you can unmute on your end. Let's see.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, well, I got married to my wife on April 11, 1964, and I got married to Cutco on October 11, 1964. So 57 years, and it's been great 57 years. Just a great time. I can't really. And it's amazing how, you know, I was with that circle that Trent was talking about, you know, he mentioned it basically the same way that I would, you know, my family is number one and the first part of the circle. And then my second part of the family, my grandchildren and all of that. And then of course the Cutco family, you know, and then my Cutco customers. So I have a great big family that I've made over the 57 years. So it's been such a great time. And I always remember the things that I was able to, you know, the suggestions that I made to improve the business and, you know, that they were taken. And I always felt so gratitude because they were taken, and I feel that really helped out too, including the CSP program. I guess, I don't know if you remember that. That was one of my suggestions to, you know, besides just being managers and recruiting, that they should have a special program for special people and you know, and form this new program. So all of these things, you know, coming out with white knives was one of my suggestions. The Edry sharpener, how to improve that so we can do double the edges when I was up at the factory. So it's been great. Just any visits that I made up to Olean and all those great people that you meet up there, and how they all listen, which listening is the greatest, gift that you can receive in anything. And with customers, with people that you know, listening is the greatest gift. And everybody in Cutco listens, and it's great. That's how they learn as much as they do. It's such a great experience just being part of this company.
It's inspiring to watch you listening, learning, taking notes, digging in, showing up. And I just, I was sitting at the table that day. I was blessed to be there when we were at this advisory board meeting to talk about the FSM program. And you just said, hey, why don't we have, a legion of people who are professional selling representatives along with all the awesome students. And, from that day, I remember the task force getting together and crafting the CSP document, and literally from, your lips to this place today, where we're celebrating a lot of people in this call who are living and helping people, through their daily efforts, enjoy lots of Cutco in so many areas, and literally, birthed from your lips. And so, for those of you who don't know you, I'm blessed to know you, but just know that you keep innovating and sharing ideas and sharing your thoughts and your gifts as we grow. And I think it's a powerful thing to think for some of us who may think we've been here for a little bit, 10, 15, 20 years. Just wrap your mind around that, over half of a century doing the thing. So Gino, I just wanted to honor you today with, again, having your voice emerge. It's keep on shining your light, and we appreciate it. So anyway, if you didn't know Gino, now you do. So, but I know you're one of the people who's inspired me on the journey over and over again. And for those of you who don't know, we'll be bringing a group of CSPs into Olean this year, and we're going to give preferential treatment to people who have never seen the factory tour before in that community. So that's something that's going to be happening, and we're going to get some people who've never seen it through it. I wanted to just note something that Jake Kuhn wrote in the chat. And Jake, I thought it was awesome that you shared, kind of after the couple of seasons that we've been in, not seeing each other, not having been together, that, really being aware that some of our relationships, we need to be really fighting to restore and reinvigorate those. And Jake, I'm scrolling here. I don't know if you're with us still, if you're able to comment, but if you had a thought you wanted to add to that, I'd love to hear that. If not, that's okay. But I loved your comment. We're moving toward a place here where we've covered a lot of the greatest hits. We've talked about a lot of things, and I just want to invite anyone's voice to emerge in these final moments. That could be an appreciation for the company. It could be a takeaway from today. It could be an encouragement. It could be a win. It could be a question. Jeff Gamboa, you have your hand up, and a lot of nice things were said about you today already, and you look great. Congrats on your new dadhood. That's pretty exciting, and would love to hear from you, because I know you've been, I remember visiting your branch office. I think it was in a church, one of them. And I remember thinking that's an interesting place to rent some office space. That was very innovative. A lot of memories, Jeff. 1997, huh?
Right. Thanks, John. A couple of things. I do want to, for the record, say the reason I was in a church is because I waited too long to look for my branch office space. So that's where I ended up. So for those of you putting branches out, get on them now. Number two, I just want to point out, I just figured out how to do not just a hand up, but a brown hand up. TB, right? So now it's more accurate. No joke. Right before I hopped on, I'm coming off of DVMs if you're on Summer 101 cap. And without even thinking, Trent Booth, I said, okay, I need to get down. And I grabbed my journal. How ironic. So Gino, legend Gino. I'm not quite 50 plus years, but I'm on 25 June 6th, 1997, and 25 this year, or 25 years this year, June 6th. So now 2.5 decades later, I wanted to say this, that, I have been a district manager very quickly, and I don't know what they were thinking, but too quickly, probably promoted division manager at the time. I spent all of my 20s and 30s with the business, and I've moved my whole life from Baltimore to Florida, and I've taken over, rebuilt, started between, I guess, technically, if you want to count it, 5 or 6 different divisions, from Mid-Atlantic, where my heart is, to now where my home is here in South Florida. And, woven out through all the things that we do naturally, woven out through the things that we do intentionally on agendas, on our divisional anchors of, how we operate and why we do things and who we do them for, woven in, and this is a quote I think was put on the Facebook, perhaps, woven in through everything are all these tidbits and juicy pieces of Leadership Development Day, things that I've just taken from being exposed to Trent Booth, or I would even say, coming from the tree of John Kane and Trent Booth, just I'm vector trained. Of course, I had to say that right. And I'm also vector raised. And so I think what's so amazing is I can go through how many journals I probably have now accumulated 20 journals because Trent Booth told me to one time and I did it just because he told me to. We have done Circle of Influence to our level, top 8, top 24, random calls of awesomeness. What do you appreciate before what do you appreciate was the thing, I think. Feather brick truck in your face, if you know what that means. What would make today awesome? I would say respectfully, I want to make sure I say this respectfully. Exchange before exchange was the thing because we were doing things that have made its way into exchange and made exchange great, if you know what that is. But I learned it 10 years before exchange came in my world. I learned it through Trent Booth and John Kane and I would say Aldi Leonardo and how they treated people. So this is a testimonial combined with a thank you, combined with, I want to just echo that, no matter your duration here, whether it's 25 years like me or you're just getting started, this is such a great place, community, family. I could name multiple people on the Zoom I didn't know were going to be on, like a Philip B, like a Deb Z, like a John F, and even young Katie Booth. This is all family. And I'm proud to say that on this home that we have that is Cutco bought, thank you, Cutco, and the opportunity, that there's a little shrine to our wedding and our marriage. And there's a little really badass picture of my wedding party. And there's 12. And someone asked, why do you have 12? So that's because you can, and I want to. And of those 12, I believe 6 or 7 are from the Cutco family, and very proud. And to this day, these are people, brothers and sister, Kate Arbuthnot Vassy, that I would take a bullet for and have just helped me to become the man I am today, and the father, the husband, and more importantly, what's happening in the future. It's all from the fundamentals of Leadership Development Day, John Kane, Trent Booth, and it's just been awesome. So I would gladly come to support this anytime, any day. So Trent, John, thanks for a mic.
Thanks, Jeff. Very much. Chris Hammond, I was thinking about your leadership day that we did. And I remember, I believe John Fiacco was there as part of that. And I think about who knew, how things would evolve. But I'd love, when you think about what year is it for you, Chris?
What year did I start, or what year was that?
How many years is it here with Cutco?
Yeah, so 93, so 29 this June, and then next June 4th will be my 30th anniversary.
Yeah, and again, just watching you sit diligently today, just listening and taking it in, it's just, it's very humbling to see so many people that have been here such a long time that are still like lifelong learners and students. Anything you'd want to reflect or share, bring your voice in today from your journey here with us?
Like Gamboa said, I mean, my whole 20s, 30s, and now 40s will be spent in this company. So essentially well over half my life was spent in this company. So, and many of you, if you're not there yet, you'll eventually get to that point where over half your life is spent here. And, when you shop for mattresses, they always say, hey, you spend a third of your life on this thing, so get a really good one. So I'm glad I picked a really good one to spend over half my life, really good company to stay with for over half my life. And, a lot of the things that I do in parenting and with whether it's date night or whether it's with, the kids or whether it's just interactions with friends has all been influenced in a big way by things like, like this, like what we're doing today, whether the leadership day that you talked about, John, or just the things that are just constantly taught here are always implemented. And it's just such a great bonus to have all the fun things along the way that also happen. Just an added cherry on top to have all the relationships. But I'll never forget all the stuff that way, and you won't either, have the stuff that you learn here. So just excited to, each year is a new fun thing.
Thanks, Chris. Kareem, one of the things I've observed in you in the CSP community is that not only are you always looking to help and innovate and serve, there's too many examples that I could give, but just you've been able to just bring a great fun spirit. I referenced it earlier. And I'd love for you to share if there's something that you're reflecting on today on your journey with us. But if not, that's okay. I just want to say thank you because you've shown up a lot of times for a lot of us. Dave Bush will often talk about that some of his greatest conversations, he loves picking up the phone and talking to Kareem. It's an inspiring, powerful thing. And a lot of you may not know Kareem if you haven't had a chance to be impacted by him, but I would love you to say hi or share a thought or two today, Kareem, if you're willing.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because early on in the call, Trent, I made notes of exactly where we're at in the timing to have my kids go back and listen to this, because these are the things that I'm working with my kids on right now. And, I'm a lot of you don't know me, even if I've been at conferences, just because I'm kind of a shy person, really. I'm a little introverted and I stick to myself and stuff like that. And Cutco in general has just hugely brought out people skills in me. And I love people and I love being around people, but I'll just be the quiet one, kind of taking everything in, right? But I love digging in one-on-one conversations. And so I have, my daughters are incredible. I'm going to brag. They're both 4.0 students and just rock stars in life, but my younger daughter, it pains me to see her sometimes because she's very introverted also. And I can identify with what she's going through now as a 14-year-old. And so I want to help her have like a better experience now in high school. And it's the stuff that I learned in my 20s from Cutco that I want to teach her now. And so just, again, like the stuff you were talking about at the beginning, towards the beginning of the call, Trent, I think overall, that's personally like one of the biggest values I've gotten just from this whole experience. And just the fact that Cutco doesn't sell you how to, or teach you how to sell knives. It teaches you how to become a better person, and that constant personal growth, which, my mom early on inspired me to do, but Cutco gave me just the easy plug-in path. And so, yeah, I definitely want to thank all of you guys on this call. A lot of you guys that have spoken, I know. A lot of you I miss. Jeff, we've only hung out a couple of times, and that was years and years ago. A lot of you I would love to get to know better, but I'm 2,500 miles away from the West Coast. So if you guys want to come hang out in Hawaii, feel free. But yeah, no, just thank you to all of you and the platform that you've provided us for personal growth, really.
Thanks, Kareem. In a moment, I'll go to Trent. I want to go to my friend Helen Brown for a moment. And, if you don't know Helen, you know that she's played such a powerful, many different types of roles as a top CSP before that was a thing. What are your personal career sales, Helen? A lot of people probably don't know this. Where are you at now?
489,000.
Yeah. So a lot of that was accomplished in the early 90s. And Helen and I had a chance to be young managers together. I remember watching you run your district office and then seeing you kind of transition into this support side in so many roles and helping us with our corporate reputation, our brand. You're one of the people that people think a lot of great things about us that they didn't used to without some of your work, and you continue to blaze that trail. Some of you may know she had an executive position with one of the big, influencers of the academic world and served there. And so I'd love you to share anything that you'd love to share about your journey or your leadership journey and your experience with all this.
There's so much. And I see Deb's met on here, who I haven't seen her face in so long. Deb was part of campus recruiting when I first started. And it goes back to conversations with Jeff Gamboa that I've had when he was a brand new sales rep. And so many from all over. And I think one of the things John Kane mentioned and spoke about was the loss of his brother. And all of us have a loss, whether inside or outside of the business. And we are family here. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not easy, but we can always pick up the phone and call anyone. And other companies don't have that. It's just not there. And we're in a very special place here. And it's always home. It always feels good. And thank you, John, for there's a lot of people who do the reputation and brand management of Vector and Cutco, and many of them are on this call, and we're all on this call, so we all do it. I know, Aaron, it's good to see you, and I know you lead Logo now, and we gave away 50 spatula spreaders at Pi Sigma Epsilon with their logo on it this past weekend. So every time they pick up that spatula spreader, I know it's because of the Olean team, but they always congratulate and always think of Vector and Cutco in a good light. So we all together recruit and sell some great products. So thank you.
Thanks, Helen. TB, you got 2 minutes left to wrap this up any way you would love to.
Well, what an amazing day, friends. I appreciate people taking time to come out today. We know that if you're a DVM, you've got one-on-ones. If you're a DM, you got one-on-ones. If you're up in Olean and you're a CSP, you've got places that you could be right now. So thank you for choosing to invest some time into yourself. Hopefully today give you a bit of a taste of what we do during the leadership development days or during the coaching or doing the masterclass. And our desire really was today to celebrate 10 years of the company saying leadership development is so important. We're going to put a person in charge of it. We're going to make a department, and we're going to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future. And we're not done. Friends, I love that. I love the man that I am, but I also love the man that I'm still becoming because of working here. And I'm just so excited to see Cutco Vector continue to grow, continue to become the place to learn, grow, and to dream. So friends, thank you so much for investing some time here today. We will get this up on YouTube on a private unlisted link so you can be able to enjoy it. And I know that many of you that are watching this later, if you couldn't join us live or had to miss a portion of it, thank you for taking the time to dive into it today. So I'm gonna hit stop on the record, but I don't have to go anywhere right now. So I'll be happy to stick around for just a little bit. In the meantime, thank you, John Kane, for pouring yourself out into today and all the preparation you've done coming into today. And thank you, the rest of you, for joining us as well. Cheers.